So I go down, and I'm so frazzled from this whole experience of like walking down, and my legs are killing me from the gym. I'm tired from work, and I get on the wrong metro going the wrong direction.
So, like, can we just like quickly address how hype I am for Fantastic Four now? I,
Dude, the
I
trailer.
mean, I mean, come on, man, come on.
I am very excited. I watched Koi's conversation talking about it because he did it on one of
Yeah,
his live streams, and he did bring up some, I guess, valid concerns in terms of like how they're going to do the like portray the characters. I One thing I will say, I take trailers as something to like introduce you to the concepts of the movie, like essentially Galactus is going to come in. We're following the Fantastic Four, things of that nature. I
sure.
don't really I'm not going to get concerned about whether or not they're going to portray the characters well, or if they're going to do Johnny. Like it's a 2-minute trailer. And again, I'm not saying
Yeah.
any negativeness to Koi. Like I think he brings up some really valid concerns. I'm just saying I don't think that it's something you can really tell off of a trailer. And he even does bring that up in the sense of we are just watching a trailer. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things that can change between now with the trailers. I mean, think
Sure.
about like obviously this is an extreme example, but like Endgame, there was shit in the trailers that weren't even in the movie at all.
Yeah.
Like that was just how it
Or
is.
or how about Infinity War? You have that big long run up in the Force. It's like at the very end of the trailer. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Where they're all, it's
Yes.
like their big like come together moment. The
Hmm.
Chitauri, it is Chitauri technically. I don't know what else you'd call them, but they're all running
Yeah, it
after.
is.
But they're all running after what technically who's left of the Avengers, and Hulk's there. They're all running. It's a big hero moment. That's not in the movie. Like that's a shot they
Correct.
completely made up for the trailer as a trailer shot.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. Maybe it's not something they just made up for the trailers. Maybe it's something they put in the trailer and then got cut from the movie. I think that they specifically filmed it to throw us off.
Sure.
Um, but like with the Fantastic Four, um, I think the biggest controversy, and I think it's so fucking stupid, is the whole like, Silver Surfer's a woman thing. It's like Silver Surfer, okay, you want to throw a tantrum, whatever. Like, be mad
Why
about
throw a
something.
tantrum though? Like it's accurate to the comics. Like Silver Surfer was a woman at one point in the comics. It's Norrin Rad's wife. That like it's just a slight change. Like
Well,
I
again,
don't understand what the issue is.
it's non-comic book fans throwing tantrums. And I think we talked about this during our first ever episode of the podcast when we talked about the state of the MCU. This is the problem you run into when you make Marvel movies for and I don't want to say this movie is catering to the general audience, but this is the drawback of having such a large audience with something that started as something more
Yeah,
niche. And that is
yeah.
now all these non-comic book fans are throwing a fit over a woman being in their movie when in fact they have no idea. They only see the Silver Surfer in the movies and like maybe a few comic book panels and see Silver Surfer as a dude and immediately assume that that's the only way Silver Surfer has ever been portrayed or can ever be portrayed.
Sure. No, that's fair. I don't understand where those people are coming from, but I mentally in my own head can kind of like put together the fragments of a thought as to why they would get led that direction, but they're still wrong. I mean,
Again,
um,
it's just rage bait. Like
yeah,
moving on from that because I don't want to harp on the controversy too much. I I guess my only complaint, and I think it's just something that again we'll have to see in the movie. I do think Reed's stretching looked a little weird.
well,
I do
we are
think
months away from this movie. Well, what, 2 months? No, almost 2 months. We are almost 2 months away from
it's
this movie.
July, right? This movie is a July movie because it comes out like what 2 weeks before Superman,
Three.
which is
Okay,
like end
we're
of July.
we are technically 3 months from this movie. That is still a lot of time to figure visual
Yeah.
effect stuff out, and I'm not overly concerned about it considering all the other stuff looks great. Like the Thing looks great, Johnny
Oh
looks
yeah.
great, Sue
Oh yeah.
looks great. I think Reed is. honestly, of all the ones that you're gonna have like a hard time creating some sort of CG effect for, Reed's gonna be the hardest. I think that at the end of the day, he's still gonna look the worst because of just how clunky and awkward that kind of CG is. It's not like it's easy to do. It's very difficult as well.
Well, and I will say, I do think, and I haven't seen the movie in a while, but obviously we had a Reed Richards, played by Pedro Pascal, not Pedro
Jo-
Pascal, sorry,
John Krasinski. Yeah.
John Krasinski. Now it's Pedro Pascal, was played by John Krasinski, who we saw stretch, and I think looked pretty good. I thought it was pretty good in Multiverse of Madness when we saw that. Like, it wasn't anything to write home about, but like, I think it looked better than the short amount of time that we saw. Like, it was like 2 seconds. Again, it's hard
They
to judge
did
based off of a trailer.
they did better than Fan Four Stick as far as CGI, but that's not
Yeah,
really a bar
but
you want to climb
I
to.
think that it would be really hard for them to do as bad as.
Well, I mean, and that's the topic of conversation is what is this movie going to be? Because this is now technically the fourth try at the Fantastic Four, hoping to get it right. Because you have the original thing from I think it was either the 80s or the 90s when it was like a short little TV movie, but that technically was the first time they were ever out there. You have 2005 with
Mhm.
Jessica Alba and Chris Evans, and then you have Fan Four Stick with Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, and now you
Well,
have this iteration of the Fantastic Four.
technically going back, you had two movies with Chris Evans.
Technically,
You had
yeah.
two
Which, yeah,
fantastic. Like,
yeah,
granted, this is the new. You're talking about iterations of the whole like team, yes, but
correct. Yeah,
this is our fifth Fantastic Four movie. Um,
yeah.
and I don't know. I'm curious to see where they go. I think that Franklin Richards coming in right off the bat is really interesting.
I have a theory
Obviously
about
with
that because it makes
being
sense.
being pregnant.
Yeah,
Well, and I think that's this is another thing that Coy brought up in his video, so I'm not being original, but he brought up the point of is first steps baby's first steps? Like, is that
that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
I don't think that Franklin's gonna play a part in this movie at all until the end credit scene. I think that's when we get Franklin.
yeah.
One thing I'm really, really curious about, and I think I brought this up with you just on like a personal call or whatever when we talked about this movie a while ago. I
Hmm.
wonder if they lose. I wonder if
They,
they
I think they do. I
I
really
don't
think
know
they
if they
do.
defeat Galactus. I like think about a way to kick them into Doomsday. Like, their world is destroyed.
Yeah.
They try to look for another one, something of that
Mhm.
nature. Like, I don't
Well,
know.
it might not even be that. Like, here's the thing. This is the other thing, and I've thought about this is like they will lose, but it's not in the way that we're describing. Because we did have this conversation where they don't beat Galactus. My thought now is they end up beating Galactus, but in doing so, that causes an incursion because that wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to lose to
That,
Galactus.
or they defeat Galactus and then Doom comes in and Doom like kicks them to the other world or something like that.
Maybe a possibility. I don't know. There's a lot of things about this, and that honestly, the thing that I love about this is that there is a lot of speculation about it because they really haven't given us a whole lot. But the things they've given us are the things that absolutely matter and are essential to the Fantastic Four. We want to see all their powers active. We want to see more specifically the family dynamic, and I think we've clearly seen that in all these trailers, and especially
Yeah.
with this last one, we finally get more of Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and we get to see him interacting with Sue and Reed, and we kind of see a little bit of butting heads with Ben. But I think that like for the Fantastic Four specifically, that is the most integral part of it. And as
Yeah,
long
I
as they
mean
nail
it's
that at the end
literally
of the day,
Marvel's first family.
yeah.
Like, as long as
And
you get the family dynamic with Marvel's first family, then I think you're fine.
and I think that's what they need to be able to hit home in order for this movie to actually like be a success. For them to want to have the ability to make another one later on, they have to be able to get that.
Mhm.
And again, like it all goes back to they need to set this family up so they can use them in Doomsday because technically, and this is especially based on the order of chairs, Reed is going to be the main protagonist. He's going to be the Iron Man of Avengers Doomsday, technically. because also in the comics, it's always been Reed against Doom, and that's the whole dynamic. So that's going to be the case.
Well, because they were best friends going up into, like, I'm curious to see what they do with Doom's story in this, obviously, but they were best friends, and Doom gets the short end of the stick when he tries to, because he didn't get launched into space with them. He tried to recreate the experiment that gave them powers, correct? At least that's one of the tellings of the Fantastic Four.
That's one of the tellings. Yeah, there's obviously different tellings, but that's one of them. I don't ever want to talk about the Fan Four Stick telling where he just gets stuck on this planet. They open the portal and, oh, he's here now. Oh, look out. It's Dr. Doom, but as a black sludge of a mess of a human. And I guess you could kind of call that a face. God, I hate Fan Four Stick. It indeed was not fantastic.
One of Miles Teller's worst works, unfortunately.
It's unfortunate. Because I actually
he redeemed himself in Top Gun, but
there you go. Top Gun saves it.
That shirtless beach scene saved his career.
But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast in the world where your two favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I'm one of your hosts this evening as we take you through. I don't want to say the topic. As we take you through the Minecraft movie.
Minecraft movie.
I don't want to talk about this. My name is Juggernaut, aka Carson, with
Brandon, aka Parrotfish.
Oh God, help my soul. I don't want to talk about this. I literally told Brandon before we start recording, I was like, this is going to be the easiest topic ever, because I'm just going to rip this thing apart and then you can do all the praises. I still feel the same way, but I'm going to rip this thing apart.
Look, I have my thoughts, you have your thoughts, and they differ. We have talked about this movie for maybe 3 minutes while we set up the recording for this podcast. We don't know each other's thoughts whatsoever. Like we have. Well, actually, that's a lie, because Carson did a review on the Instagram, TikTok, like Twitter, things like that, which is something we're doing, and we're going to be posting weekly or daily, going forward, different like reviews of what we're watching to kind of bring in people to the podcast. But I did watch Carson's because he had me post it, and I don't want to say we massively disagree on our takes, but I think our experiences were a little different. We'll see. We'll see when we talk about it.
It's very different. But with that being said, Brandon, how you doing, buddy? What's the word?
I'm good. I'm all right. You know, it's been another week. I work. I was telling Carson before we hopped on the podcast. I have been working out at my apartment gym the past like month, 2-3 months or something like that, and I recently got a Planet Fitness membership, because there's a Planet Fitness like right down the street from me, and I swear to God, when they say 100 pounds versus my home gym's 100 pounds, man, it's a world of different. Like, I got done with leg day on my leg day is Tuesday. I couldn't go into the gym the next day, like, or I needed to. Like, the next day I did arms, luckily. And then the day after that was supposed to be like cardio and abs. And I like get done with work. I clock off and I'm sitting there like, I'm done. I'm not going to the gym. That's when I went and saw the Minecraft movie, because I was supposed to see the Minecraft movie on Friday, which is supposed to be my rest day, one of my rest days of the gym. But I swapped it because my legs hurt so freaking bad from my normal weight at the gym. Like, I didn't even up my weight whatsoever. Now, granted, I did, because Planet Fitness has way more equipment, I did do more exercises than normal and worked different muscles. But like, oh man, it was bad.
Yeah.
How have you been? How?
No, I mean, I'm good. I had some lovely times at work this week. I drove all the way out to Daytona Beach for some sauces. I wasn't supposed to do that. That's not my job description, but I did it anyway.
Why?
Because we were in a big bind. And also, I'll be completely honest, my manager looked at me and he went, listen, I will double your money, and technically you don't have to work the rest of the day if you do this. I'm like, go, get me out of here, run. I will take that drive, thank you. just put on some music or listen to a movie while I'm driving, and everything will be okay.
Fair enough.
But no, man, good. Just wrapping up, getting ready for finals. It's a we're getting to that point in school where it's the quickly incline and then backed into the decline, and so you just got to prepare for that. But I feel like I'm ready to go, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about this. Well, not the Minecraft movie, but I'm excited to talk about everything else today. This is gonna be it's gonna be a fun recording sesh. With that being said, Brandon, what have you been consuming this week? Other than chicken jockey, what have you been consuming this week?
Sorry, I'm pulling up my notes. Not on my. I'm pulling it up on my computer this time, as opposed to my iPad.
Ooh,
My
there you
my eye
go.
angle is going to be very different. But I'm going to do the same thing that I did. So obviously, I'm watching a lot of weekly anime.
Sure.
I only introduced one new show this week, and it's technically a part of that weekly anime, but it is a Netflix anime that was released all at once like a week or two ago, and I've only watched one episode, just because that's all I had time to do. But I'm going to do the same thing I did last week, and that is talk about them in order from least to most enjoyment, mainly because I want to track how much my enjoyment of the series change over time. Because let me tell you, it has changed drastically. Like drastically, my level of enjoyment of the shows that I've been watching has changed.
This is gonna be
So
interesting then.
let's start off. Sorry. Let's start off with the show that I enjoyed the least, which I can't remember where it sat in my rankings last time. I think it was like number 2, um, if I remember correctly. Now it's my least favorite, and that's Lazarus. We had episode
Yeah.
2 of
Okay.
Lazarus, which I'm not going to get into an explanation. If you want to hear about what the show is, either look it up or watch last week's episode.
Sure.
But essentially, what happens in this episode specifically is we get kind of an introduction to what the actual storyline is going to. Obviously, we know that Axel is being recruited to go hunt down Dr. Skinner to find the cure to this like drug that's going to kill everyone in a few days. This episode specifically, essentially it's the Suicide Squad. Like
Sure.
like
Sure.
granted, it's not that they're gonna die if they don't do it. They have a wristband on that'll burn so hot that it melts their hand off. If they like disobey. So like basically the Suicide Squad, except their heads don't explode.
Sure.
That's literally it. The reason why I didn't enjoy this episode all that much is because one, and I talked about this on the Instagram, it gave a really shitty explanation to something I was really looking forward to finding out more of. And I did even mention
Okay.
on the Instagram, I'm curious to see if they changed this. But if you remember, Axel, when we originally find him, was in prison. And he was locked up for 8 life sentences. And it was like, oh, cool. Wow, what did he do? Like, did he kill a bunch of people? Is he misunderstood?
Sure.
Something like that.
Sure.
You want to know what the explanation is?
Go for
We
it.
get this in a lore drop. He was put in jail originally for a 3-year sentence. And
Okay.
the way that the criminal system in this world works is every time you break out of prison, your sentence doubles. So that's how he got to 8 life sentences.
That's
Which is
not
okay. Here's the other thing. I think I wrote this down. Let me see. Because he specifically mentions how many times he broke out of prison. He was put in there for 3 years, and I think he said he broke out of prison 8 times or something of that nature. I did the math. Whatever number it is, I did the math, and the amount of times that he says he broke out of prison and the 3 years that he was in prison, or no, sorry, he doesn't give a number for how many times. I just did the math, and you cannot get to 888 years by doubling 3 every, like, it's just mathematically impossible. So I don't know if that's a mistranslation in
Sure.
Japanese to like, I don't know if those numbers are mistranslated or what, but it's just, in my opinion, a really dull answer of like, oh, he breaks out of prison a lot, therefore he got 8 life sentences. Like,
It's yeah.
again, I wonder if he's lying, because that would pique my interest way more. But just finding out that he broke out of, like, the only, and here's the thing, the only interesting character, and I think I wrote down her name. No, I did not write down her name, but there's a hacker character. She's the only one that has an interesting reason for being locked up, and that's just that she's actually committed terrible war crimes with her hacking and like hacking into important systems and things like that. We get like 0 of her. Like, literally, we just get that dump. We see her hack into like one thing each episode and nothing else. So the only interesting character in the entire series that has like an interesting, like, sketchy reason to be there, we get nothing. And again, we're only in episode 2, so there's plenty of chances for this to change. But when your main character just turns out to be a guy who likes how to break out of prison, I don't know.
Well, it sounds like a very Finn and Rey type of thing, like with Star Wars, where I'm one of the people who actually likes Last Jedi. It's not my favorite, but I can watch Last
Mhm.
Jedi and be okay with it. But like the thing that like I kind of feel like this might be like a comparison for is, the big thing from Force Awakens was who's Rey's parents. Why is it such a big deal to finding out who's Rey's
Mhm.
parents is? We get this build up, and then Kylo Ren in Last Jedi is like, oh yeah, they were drinkers. They sold you off for drinking money. That's it. Of all the things you could have said, that's not the thing anybody would have
Yeah.
ever expected you to say. And then you have Finn comparing to the hacker. The hacker has so much potential. You set up all this stuff. You know, Finn's going to be somebody who turns against the stormtroopers and becomes a Jedi. That's fantastic. What do they do with that? He goes to a planet and then kisses a girl who's not Rey. That's
Yeah.
it. That's all he does.
Yeah.
That's Finn's epic
It's
story.
and here's the thing, that story had a lot more time to build up the mystery of who's Rey's parents and things like that. Again,
Sure.
we're only in episode 2. In fact, there's a revealed like halfway through episode 2.
Sure.
But the other, and here's the thing, I don't want to get this mistake, because this is not the only reason I didn't like this episode. I'll talk about this because, and I don't have much more to say on this, but the main like plot through line of this episode on what the group is trying to accomplish is essentially they're trying to track down Dr. Skinner. The hacker lady finds the like that he has a like outpost somewhere in the middle of the desert that
Yeah.
he like rented a while ago. So they go there, and turns out Dr. Skinner's not there, and it's actually a guy that like kind of looks like Dr. Skinner, but apparently owes a bunch of money to a bunch of people, including like a bunch of mob. He owes money to like the FBI, or he's being chased down by the FBI. And it's like there's some really
Sure.
cool fight scenes, but like they build up all this thing to like, oh, we're tracking down Dr. Skinner, we're tracking down, like, oh my god, and it's all just played off for, oh, that wasn't Dr. Skinner. And I'm really hoping that this isn't going to turn into a pattern where every episode is this big buildup of, oh my god, we're going to find Dr. Skinner and this is going to kick off everything, just to turn out into some rando that no one gives a shit about,
Well,
that
sure. Yeah.
was just being chased by other
Yeah.
people for no other reason.
No, I get that. No, I completely understand that. But yeah.
Yeah. I will, again, the animation's really good. The fight choreography is really good. The voice acting's all right. I still think it's kind of mid.
So Lazarus
Do,
quickly fell down the totem pole.
yeah, Lazarus went from like number 2 on my favorite of the spring anime season to my last favorite.
Oh my god.
We do get
Love
a lore
that.
dump on Dr. Skinner and find out that he's like a godsend. He's like the best human being ever, which we kind of already assumed, which I will say that does build up a good mystery as to why he actually did this, or if it was actually Dr. Skinner who did this, or maybe it's a conspiracy. Something like, I think that element is the only thing that's going to keep me watching this week to week. Because I do want to find out, like, why did Dr. Skinner do this? He's such a good person that they've built him up to be. Maybe he's a secret, like, bad person, or maybe it was a conspiracy, or maybe he got manipulated, like, whatever it might be. Maybe this is all a lie. Like, we don't know. We only have Dr. Skinner's word to go off of. And I'd be fine with, honestly, any of those answers. I hope this doesn't turn into an episodic, oh, let's stumble across someone that kind of looks like Dr. Skinner. Oh, it's not
Right.
Dr. Skinner. Moving on.
Right.
Like, that's,
Yeah.
I don't know. That just feels lame to me.
No, that's fair. I get that.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so that's the only one, let me specify this. That was the only one I actively, like, kind of disliked from this week. Everything else I did enjoy. It's more of just, again, that level of enjoyment. And this is another one that fell down. I think this was my number one, and now it's moved down. It's interesting to see how the rankings have shifted. And I will say I am including the first episode of the Devil May Cry anime, which is the other anime that I watched.
Yeah.
But that my number 3 is the My Hero Vigilantes. Again, that one it was my number 1 last week, and I didn't hate the episode. I just think it was kind of, I don't know how to put this. Dull. Like,
did it seem fillerish, or just like that it dragged on?
No, because it does build things out a little bit. And this is another thing I talked about on the Instagram. I really like the animation style. I think it's a beautiful looking anime that actually has it incorporates like onomatopoeia to make it feel a little bit more like a comic book, or even like the original Batman movie where it was like pow pow to accentuate punches. I do like that style. One thing that I don't like though is the movement, and especially the fight choreography feels not dynamic at all. And now, granted, this is a different team than who animated My Hero Academia, which has very fluid fight scenes, in my opinion, very beautiful animation. This tries to set itself apart by having that different animation. I think the fight choreography is whatever, mainly because it doesn't feel dynamic. It feels very one note. It feels very slow. And I don't hate it. It's just not my favorite. Again, I don't like scenes. I think I talked about this back when I talked about Solo Leveling. I don't like things where it's just like, punch. Punch. Like, okay, cool, you added a giant pow on the screen, but like, you threw 2 punches. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't love that all that much. We do find out that Knuckle Duster supposedly doesn't have a quirk at all. It was maybe insinuated that his quirk was that he had brass knuckles, but that's kind of a stupid quirk. Not
no,
that there's literally a guy who's
Wolverine.
Okay. You should watch our the Instagram reel / TikTok that I posted, because the only image that's on screen, they have 2 characters that are high school students, or no, sorry, middle school students, I think. It's just Cyclops and Wolverine. It I shit you not. Pull up the Instagram, go to the reels, or pull up our TikTok, go to the reels, and just look at the cover to that reel. You'll know it immediately. Because they introduce characters that, and here's the thing, Cyclops' power, he has a visor, he opens it up, he shoots the laser beam out of his eyes.
That's literally Cyclops.
It's Cyclops and Wolverine. Now, granted, Wolverine just looks like him. He doesn't really have the same powers. I think he just fights with sticks or something.
This is Cyclops and Wolverine. This is literally Cyclops and Wolverine. What the heck?
Yeah, it is. And I think that's another reason why it did knock the episode down a little bit, is it was played for gags, and I do really like the superhero nature of it, but I was also just like, come on, man. Like, you're literally just like you're not even like alluding to that. He's just the characters. I started off the reel by saying I'm here watching another episode of X-Men 97, because it's literally just like the X-Men. Now, granted, quirks are very like, My Hero Academia is not an original story. It is very, very heavily based off of the X-Men in terms of these people with powers. Now, granted, there's a lot of differences in terms of the amount of people, how the people with quirks are perceived. But at the end of the day, it's people with powers who go to school for powers.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Now, granted, X-Men wasn't even the first people to do that, or the only people to do that. But it is like heavily influenced type
Well, and
thing.
I will also add, you're right about that, because X-Men, whereas it wasn't the first to do it, it's become such a popular mainstream thing that they have kind of been credited as, oh yeah, no, they were clearly the first to do it. I'm not saying it isn't good. I think that it is really good, and I would actually argue it
Oh
might be
yeah.
better than all the other ones. But I can guarantee you, it's certainly not the first. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. Now, and I will say I do like the moral questions that they're asking in this story, because one of the things that Knuckle Duster talks about with Eraserhead, who's one of the hero, he's one of the throughputs because he's a character who we see in My Hero. He's actually a big character in My Hero who's come in to My Hero Vigilantes. Just this takes place, I think, 5 or 6 years before the action, so he's very different. Eraserhead is talking with Knuckle Duster after a misunderstanding fight, and Knuckle Duster basically says my goal is to stop people before they can even commit a crime, and that's a very interesting moral question that's asked all the way back in Winter Soldier, because the whole through line of Winter Soldier is Hydra wants to stop people before they can even become a threat to Hydra. It's we want to stop people before they can become evil. My Hero Vigilantes is asking.
How about the entire plot of Age of Ultron? Tony's whole line to Cap is, Cap's whole line to Tony is, every time someone tries to win a war before it starts, innocent people die. I mean, that is a great moral question for any television or film character to ever have. I think it creates some of the most beautiful arcs.
Yeah, and that's why, again, I don't hate this episode of My Hero Vigilantes, not by a long shot. I just think that it was kind of disinterested. I enjoyed my time. We get a little bit more from Pop Step and her powers of the leap quirk. Nice Guy is now changed his name to Crawler, because now he can go up walls and things, so it's a little bit of an evolution of his power. He's going a little faster, so he is learning, which I think is cool and interesting. I'm curious to see, maybe he no longer needs 3 points of contact, maybe he can eventually learn. Knuckle Duster not having any powers and just being able to punch people, an interesting thing, kind of like with what Mashal was, where Mashal is a guy who has no magic in a world of magic. Knuckle Duster's a strong guy in a world with superpowers.
Sure, right.
Again, none of these are original ideas, and I'm not saying they need to be. I just think it hasn't grabbed my attention yet. It hasn't hooked me. And that's why it's a little bit lower on my list. I'll talk about my next thing. And this is a hard one, honestly, because I actually watched this episode an hour ago before we started recording. So I haven't had a full time to digest it, but I do think it is my second favorite, and it's hard. The competition between the top two is actually really, really hard, because I actually loved these 2 episodes of these different anime. I think I'm gonna have to give my number 2 to Devil May Cry. I have you, before I get into this, Carson, have you played the games at all? Because obviously, Devil May Cry is a game franchise.
I know what it is, but I've never played it.
Very popular game franchise.
I've seen gameplay from it, but I've never played it.
I'll talk about my history with it. None. I have also not played it. I think I own all the games because of free giveaways and stuff like that.
It's like me with Batman Arkham Origins. I own the game. That doesn't mean that I play it.
Well, I think we talked about this when we talked about the Nintendo Switch, that I own over 2,000 games and I've played maybe 100 of them. It's an active problem of mine. But anyways, so I just wanted to get that out there, because I'm coming in as a just this anime fan. I know literally nothing except for the main character of the game is the main character of this world, and that's Dante Inferno, and also that demons play into it. That's literally all I know. And I just gotta say, one, beautiful looking. Absolutely gorgeous looking anime. So this is a Netflix anime. This is made by Netflix. I don't know what studio did it. I think it was literally just Netflix's anime studio. And it is an original anime story. I think it's obviously taking elements from the games, but I don't believe it's one for one following any of the games. And I loved the action in this. beautifully choreographed, brutal. Like you haven't seen any of Netflix's other anime. One of the things,
No.
so you know how HBO is like known for being like gruesome and gory and having a bunch of sex and things like that. Like that's like
Sure.
what they're known for. For lack of a better term, that's what they're known
Lack of a
for.
better term, sure. Yeah.
Netflix's anime studio is known for being absolutely abhorrently gruesome. Like they've made all the Castlevania anime, all of those, like in the first, I think it's 5 minutes of this episode, people are getting like slaughtered, like blood everywhere. Dude gets his head cut off. You see the head and you see like the spot, like it is gruesome. But it all looks phenomenal, like fantastically animated. The character designs, one of the main demons that we're introduced to is a rabbit, and oh my god, he looks so interesting. It's this giant white humanoid looking rabbit with a monocle in a suit. He looks fly as fuck, dude. Like he strolls up looking hot as hell. Like I love his character design. I'm sorry, I love his character design. And basic story is the demon world and the human world used to be one. Then they got split because they actually share a common ancestor, demons and humans. Then the world split, and now the demons are trying to come back to our world, and we need to stop them.
Yeah.
And one thing that I was not expecting is how political this anime to get. Literally half of this episode is just spent with the vice president of the United States and the president of the United States and his cabinet talking about how we're going to handle this. What are we going to do? Again, as a non-game player, I have no idea if that's just how this game works. But like, I was sitting there like, we're just sitting here we're not following Dante for most of this episode. We do get some really cool action with Dante. I'd say maybe it's a 75% president and because there's also like an interrogation that takes place to try to get more information about what's going on, and that's where we get a lot of the lore dumps. And I don't know if that's, again, all the episodes have dropped. I've only watched one episode. I might end up probably finishing the series by the time next week comes up, just because it's not that long. It's 8 episodes. But like all I really have to say is it's got me hooked in terms of we have answers to like 0 questions. We just know the demons want to destroy the world. It is beautifully animated. Dante's a badass, and that's it. Like, it's kind of, for me, it's just a cool looking battle show with beautiful animation and an interesting enough story.
Right.
And I wish I had more to say about it, especially because I'm ranking it as my number 2 from this week of anime. I haven't had a lot of time to digest it, just because, again, I watched it like an hour ago. But I still think it was a phenomenal first episode. Action-packed, gory. Oh, actually, I have one more thing to say. Soundtrack, killer.
Fire.
Killer soundtrack.
Sure.
It is like hard rock, action-packed, like gets you hyped soundtrack. Like when the battle scenes are happening, again, it's dynamic. There's a shapeshifter that's introduced that takes place in the form of a baby, and then Dante has to fight the shapeshifter. The music behind that fight
the baby.
Again, get you pumped. Yeah, fight the baby. It is I just really enjoyed my time. It was really hype. Again, there's no story to go off of, so this might probably drop in my ranking if the story doesn't stay interesting.
Sure.
But I think in terms of first episode, this had a really strong first episode that really hooked me. Sure. All that being said, my last anime that I watched, let me pull up my notes for this because I actually took a lot of them and I'm probably going to barely reference them, it was my least favorite anime of, if you remember the anime that I talked about, you'll know based on what I've said so far, what is next and the last, and it is now gone from literally my least favorite to my favorite. And that is To Be Hero X.
Wow.
If you remember,
never would have expected that.
Yeah. If you remember, Carson, I fumbled through my explanation of last episode, the first episode, because I really didn't enjoy it all that much. It was way too hard to keep up with, way too fast paced. I barely knew what was going on. Beautifully animated, that was all I really had thoughts wise. They tried to pour way too much into one episode, and I was really worried that that was going to carry through. And I will say that first episode, when I eventually go back and retroactively think about the whole series, is going to probably hamper my overall thoughts of the show, depending on, this is actually the longest of the spring anime season. All the other ones that I've talked about, Devil May Cry is 8 episodes. All the other are 12 to 13 episodes, like Lazarus, My Hero. This one's 24 episodes. So it has a lot to work with. So obviously it is probably going to shift around a lot in my ranking depending on how the episodes go.
Sure.
But this episode was phenomenal. This episode was so good. So I did not know where next episode was going to go. Obviously, we ended off with Moon having died. Turns out Moon is not dead. That was actually just I guess, hallucination of Nice. We didn't really get an explanation, which I guess is my biggest biggest note on this episode, is we don't really know why Nice saw Moon as being dead. I think that's I'm really hopeful, and it actually is really intriguing in terms of us not getting an explanation. And maybe there's a wider thing going on here in terms of why Nice saw Moon is dead. Does it have to do with his powers? Does it have to do with someone else manipulating him? Something along those lines, I think, could be very interesting. And the reason I say that is because we actually find out a interesting thing about the way that the powers work in this world. So last week we found out, so fear fuels the bad guys. Like, you use fear to gain power. That's what the bad guys use. The good guys use the trust of the people. But that's not all. So trust not only determines your level of power in this world, it also determines the nature of your power. So
Sure.
Moon and Nice are dating for kind of publicity reasons, because they're two of the biggest superheroes in this world. And that means that the people want to see them together. The people love watching Moon and Nice together. So Moon's power is teleportation, but she could only teleport to Nice because that's what the people want. The people want Moon and Nice to be together. So Moon's power is teleporting to Nice.
Okay.
Which I think is really interesting. I really hope that that's something that continues in terms of, we still don't really know all of Nice's powers. He's kind of just a generic Superman character right now, which is why I think there's a lot of intrigue into, does Nice have more going on than just flight and super strength and things like that? Like, I maybe it's just that the people want him to be the best superhero, so therefore he is, so therefore he has the powers of the best superhero. I really hope that that's not the case, and that's one thing that, again, could very much change my rating of this show as a whole. But anyways, so the whole, like, plot of this episode is Moon finds out that Nice is not the real Nice, and we find out that Moon does not give a shit. She actually doesn't like the fact that she's been forced to date Nice this whole time. Nice was kind of a piece of shit. He was a perfectionist. He was a neat freak. Never allowed Moon to be herself. And so when she meets Nice, like the new Nice, who's Lynn, he is very different, and she can tell very, very quickly. Because obviously, even though she wasn't happy with him, she still spent a lot of time with her boyfriend. So she can, if anyone was going to be able to tell the difference, it was going to be her. And so the media person of this world, and I can't remember her name because I don't really I can't remember her name. Miss J, who's like the person who kind of controls the media, like these superheroes in terms of a media perspective and what they do perspective, and kind of their manager. She needs them to be together. So she locks them in a room together for weeks until they are happy. And you would expect that what would happen is, okay, we're just going to see them locked in this room together. They have some cute scenes together. They have a little food fight. It's actually really adorable. And you're starting to think of, oh, what's going to happen is they're going to fall in love and we're going to then we're going to move on. Not what happens. Moon grows to appreciate Lynn as Nice, but still wants her independence. She wants to be done with this superhero life. And so Lynn, as Nice, comes up with a plan where they kill her off. he has a big fight with his nemesis, and the whole point is she's supposed to die. Now, she doesn't actually die. They fake her death, but
Sure.
he comes up with this whole plan to essentially make a deal with Miss J and say, hey, Moon doesn't want to do this. She's not going to get married. So they pretend that they're going to get married in this big public like display to kind of help with Nice and Moon's, like, to confirm that there's no suspicion of who Nice is and Moon doesn't doubt it and things like that. And so they fake this marriage. Nice's nemesis comes in, who turns out to be his high school best friend. They were supposed to come up as superheroes together. And then he was actually, I'm trying to find his name in my notes because I know I wrote it down somewhere. Where is it? Rek, R-E-K, is his nemesis, and they were supposed to come up together, but then Rek had to become a villain because, again, the world isn't really superheroes fighting against villains. It's this big media thing. There's no, like, there are real villains, obviously, but not everything is as it seems, which I think is a really interesting, like, plot thread. But they came up together, and Rek had to become a villain in order to stay relevant. So then they have him be the villain that comes in, and there's this really beautiful scene where Rek finds out, this is when we get the whole lore dump, that Lin isn't the Nice he knows, and that his best friend in the entire world is dead, and he's devastated. And then he actually loses it. Like, he's supposed to be acting this whole time, and then he actually, like, loses it. He snaps and, like, actually tries to kill Moon now. And that's where Nice has to step in and actually save Moon, and he does, but they're still able to successfully pull off her death while navigating this the person that was supposed to pretend to kill Moon is now actually trying to kill Moon. And then another interesting note on the whole power system is at the end, they have a funeral service for Moon, and Nice basically asks the people, hey, like, now that she's dead, like, pray for her release, like, pray that she lives happily and fruitfully. And the reason he does that is obviously Moon is still alive, and we know that her current powers, because the people want her to be with Nice, is linked to Nice. But him telling the people to pray for her freedom and pray for her release to the beyond now allows her to be separate from Nice.
Sure.
So she can now teleport to wherever she wants to, which I think was a really, like, beautiful move on Nice's part and shows his character, but also, again, builds on to how the people influence superheroes and how they influence the powers. So I think I'll end my thoughts there. But I really, really enjoyed this episode. I really like the power system. Again, beautifully animated in the fight scene between, I didn't even get into this all that much, but the fight scene between Rek and Moon and Nice, the art style changes from 3D to 2D into this really, like, cel-shaded, like, comic booky style, like, fight choreo. It was so beautifully done. Really interesting. Like, I don't know. I really love the look of the show. I love the sound of this show. I'm really excited to see where this goes. But that is all I have for anime. I do have one more thing that I did watch, and I'm gonna let Carson kick us off with that. Well, I don't think it's gonna be the first thing he talks about, but I'll let Carson talk about that because I also watched it. But yeah, that is my thoughts on the weekly anime that I'm watching.
Well, there you go.
What are you watching? What do you watch? I know what you've been watching. I know it is.
Of course. Let's start with the season finale for Daredevil: Born Again. I mentioned in my 3-minute review that this whole episode seemed like a finale to a show that just, like, was rushed and didn't, like, happen all that much, because it really seems like this is a finale from episodes 1 through 3. They stop, you pick up with episode 8, and then you jump straight into the finale with 9. It feels like two very different shows, which I think is what everybody was kind of afraid of happening when they said, we're going to do a creative overhaul, we're going to bring old characters back, we're going to connect it to the original series, which, granted, I'm happy they did that. I'm happy for the things that we got, but it creates overall a big mess of a picture. Still a good show. Like, if I still was ranking this of all the Disney Plus shows, I would still probably put it at like number 3, but I would have really wanted to put it at number 1.
That's way for how many shows we've got that I think are actually really good from Disney Plus. That is a really high ranking for how, like, I guess
Well, because it's
middling I've read your reviews as. Like, I know you've been pretty positive on it overall, but there's still that note of doubt. And when you're putting this thing up against things like Loki, which obviously I'm pretty sure is your number one, if I'm not
it is.
mistaken,
Loki's
and
number
if you're
one.
including things like Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man and Agatha, which I really enjoyed, and WandaVision, like, I don't know, that's really high for something that
It's
seems like you've been middling on.
Loki, X-Men 97, and Daredevil. And I think because here's the thing, like
Wow.
even though it is like a miss or a miss, even though it's like a mess of a show at times, like it's still really good. Like my least favorite episode of this series is probably episode 5. And episode 5 isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 5 is a very good self-contained standalone story, but it has nothing to do with the overarching plot beyond Matt putting on a red mask at the very end and breaking the leg of a guy who was in this bank trying to rob it. Like the whole point is Matt is
It was
going
very
to
shoehorned.
it's very a shoehorned plot that affects the plot in no way, shape, or form. Wilson
Yeah.
Fisk isn't even in the episode, which also goes to show that okay, they clearly did not this is just like a filler episode. It's just an extra episode that they
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of pad the runtime, and it's from the original set. It's not bad. I think Yusuf Khan is funny in the episode. I think that Matt as a whole, as a character, is a lot more lighthearted and engaging than he usually is, which I don't necessarily know if I like or not, but it's not bad. And so like because it's not bad, I can't say, oh yeah, because these episodes are here, it makes the entire series awful. No, it just makes it a mess and it makes it hard to
Yeah.
rewatch. But pertaining more to the finale, um, Matt Murdock suits up as Daredevil, and he and Punisher go, and they are basically taking out uh, parts of Wilson Fisk's uh, part of Wilson Fisk's Punisher task force. And
Mm-hmm.
dude, what I mean, it is fantastic to see John Bernthal back as Punisher, dude. I can't wait for his special after this episode. But John Bernthal was kicking ass, and it was violent, it was brutal. Honestly, I think at times this whole episode might have been more brutal than anything Daredevil has ever done. More on that with a Wilson Fisk thing that I'll talk about later. But the action was really well done, and I had a lot of fun with the fight scene. Um, and then we also get the return of Karen, which this is what I specifically wanted to talk about. Karen comes out uh, after basically calling Frank Levy and like, "Hey, what's going on? Matt got shot. What's happening?" And Karen comes out of the car, and we get her back, and immediately you realize this is what the entire show has been missing is the Foggy Nelson Karen Page dynamic that we all really wanted from the beginning, because the moment she's back on, the episode is lightning in a bottle. It's the show that we want, and it's probably why the finale is one of the best and better episodes of the actual show so far, because we get that back.
Yeah.
It's like you can't watch the Blues Brothers. This is actually a great example. You can't watch the Blues Brothers without John Belushi. We know that because
Mm,
they failed when they made a sequel movie with just Dan Aykroyd, and it failed.
yeah.
There's like some things you can't just do without, and I feel like without Karen, it really separates the entire heart of what the show had going for it. Yeah, you have scenes with Matt and Frank, and that's good. But when you kill off Foggy, so that completely eliminates an option, and then you only have one person left, it creates a massive divide in heart and character and things that you really want from a show. And so overall, uh, my thing is like you really can tell that that's what they were missing was the Karen Page dynamic, and that's all they needed, and that's the show that we wanted to see. And so for that reason alone, I stand by my statement last week. I can't wait for season 2 because now they have a roadmap and now they know
Yeah.
exactly where they want to go. And it's unfortunate that their season 1 didn't take off as well as they probably wanted it to, uh, because of the entirety of the reshoots and trying to make everything more to the original show. It made it a problem for Matt's story as a whole. That being said, Kingpin's story, start to finish, perfect. I actually would go as far as to say it probably is, other than maybe season 1 Kingpin of Daredevil, it is the best Kingpin we've gotten thus far. I think his arc is incredible. I love the idea of, it's funny, the show's called Daredevil Born Again, but it really should be Kingpin Born Again, because I really feel more for Wilson's Born Again arc, because obviously it's happening simultaneously. You're trying to watch these men refuse who they are, because Wilson wants to actually try to be a good mayor. He wants to try to do all the right things. And then slowly and surely, he slowly becomes the Kingpin again, and he does all these horrible acts and deeds.
He can't escape his old ways.
He can't escape his old ways, and it's the same thing for Matt.
Yeah, well, and I know, and I haven't seen The Sopranos, but funny enough, I've been watching Moist Critical talk about The Sopranos because he just finished season 4 of it, and one of the things that he talks about, and the reason I bring this up is because I know you love The Sopranos, is the main character of The Sopranos. It's the same thing of trying to be a better person and always falling back to your old ways and showing that some people just can't change. And I think, like, from the little that I've seen of Kingpin through both Echo and I think mainly through Echo, because that was another story that was told through Echo, is he wants to be there for Echo. He wants to be that father figure, but he can't get past the fact that he's also a bad man. Like, he cannot give up that part of himself, whether it be for someone he loves or himself. Like, he just can't. It is a part of him to be a bad person. And I think that can be seen as lame or generic, but I think it is a really interesting character trait where a lot of the time, or I shouldn't say a lot of the time, sometimes you have a character that's evil for the sake of evil, and sometimes you have a character where you want it, like a villain that you want to redeem. And then sometimes you have people like Wilson Fisk, who you're like, oh, maybe he can be good because you can see some of the reason behind what he's doing, but he just always goes back to just being a bad person and being self-serving, even when he might do one thing good here or one thing good there.
Well, and it's interesting because last year we had another show that came out about a villain called The Penguin, which I know I've talked to you about a lot, and I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and I need to watch that. That's on my watch list.
But the whole point of The Penguin, and something that they didn't lose focus of, and something that Matt Reeves really never lost focus of, is that Oswald Cobblepot is a villain to his core.
Yeah.
And you've been following him through this entire arc, but in no way, shape, or form has it ever given you any reason to actually care about this character, in the sense of, oh yeah, there's some good here. There's some hope for this character here. He is a villain. And what was so fun about that journey, and I'm not going to spoil it because I want you to watch it at some point, but what was fun about his journey specifically was the audience themselves kind of forgot, because there's no Batman here, even though it's a Batman universe. There's no real good people in this universe.
It's specifically the Robert Pattinson's Batman universe, correct?
Yes, okay, yes. Yeah. And they're specifically, like, everybody in the show is horrible. Like, they're all evil human beings. There's not one good person. So the audience loses focus of the Penguin being a villain. Oh, he's clearly a good guy. In our own heads, we change the story to make it seem like he's a good guy, but really he's a villain. And in the season finale, we really see how much of a villain he actually can be. And then we are all taken back and brought back to the moment of, oh wait, we've been following a villain this whole time. We never really should have cheered for this guy at all. It's one of those things. And specifically with Kingpin, it's kind of the same thing, just done on a different level. Kingpin was never a good guy. He's always been a villain, no matter how much the writers and creative team want to twist your image of him. He will always be a villain. And I think that specifically here with one specific scene, which I know I mentioned violence, the police captain is brought back into a room with a couple of the Punisher SWAT team created by Fisk, and Fisk, full on Omni-Man, crushes his head, eyeball popping out, and I'm just like, Christ, like, that was hard to watch. But I watched that scene and I go, no, he's a villain. He needs to be stopped. I don't know why I ever rooted for this guy at all. Please get Daredevil, do something, please.
Yeah. Well, and I I love stories like that. I love stories where, so we've talked about how you've watched, I don't want to spoil anything for this, but because I have literally 2 pieces of art on my wall for it. Those are both Attack on Titan art right there. You've seen all of Attack on Titan, or how much of Attack on Titan have you seen?
I've seen all of the first season of Attack on Titan.
Okay.
But
Okay, so then I
that
can't
was
say what I was
a
going to say.
while ago.
So then I can't say what I was going to say. But essentially, and I guess this might be a spoiler, but try not to read too much into it. I love stories where your perception of the main character is twisted and turned so much in terms of good versus evil and what actions are justifiable and what actions aren't justifiable. And it makes you think, oh, we're following the, like you said with Penguin, and I really want to watch the show. I just didn't because you wouldn't give me your HBO login until recently. Because I'm a cheapskate.
But it also like the thing that I love about these stories, and I know exactly what you're gonna say about it too, is it really goes to show how much the writers are damn good at their jobs and how they can craft a story that allows the audience to connect with these people who you should not be able to connect with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because what I was gonna say is something along those lines, but it's also like I love those stories so much, and I don't know if anything is ever gonna come of this, but I've even had an idea rolling around in my own head of a story with a very kind of one of those things where again you find like your perception of the main character shifts and turns throughout the entire course of the story. And I think the story that I have in my head is a really good one, but I think everyone thinks that. I feel like everyone who loves nerddom always comes up with a story that they want to turn into something, and I'm not saying it ever will, but again, like that's how much I love, like I don't see myself as a very creative person, but I love stories like this so much that I even spun up my own because I just love, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so upset that I have like basically all of Breaking Bad spoiled for me, because I know that was one of the things that was really big as to why Breaking Bad is as big as it is because you're watching a good family loving chemist man go from a good family loving chemist man to the devil himself, brutally murdering people, manipulating, torturing. He becomes a terrible, terrible human being. And I'll still definitely watch Breaking Bad one day. I just wish I didn't have literally the entire plot spoiled for me. Because I just love stories like that so much in terms of good guy, bad guy, what's good, what's bad, what's the character's perception of their actions versus the actual ramification. I think that's my favorite part of it, and it actually plays into the story that I'm writing in my head way more, is it's not necessarily the dynamic between good and evil, it's the character's perception of what good is and what evil is. And I think that's a big thing with what Kingpin is Kingpin's perception is protect the city and his self-interest, but in reality, when he's going about that, exactly, it is at all costs. Like he doesn't care about the ramifications of his actions.
Sure. Yeah. And look, we've seen kind of like mini redemption arcs from Wilson Fisk, but not really. Season 3 of Daredevil, it literally is about how Fisk is basically put under house arrest. Hey, you can be free, but we're going to put you under house arrest. But the biggest issue with that, like, you know, from the beginning as an audience member, he's manipulated the whole thing. Like, you know, that like he's not even trying to sugarcoat it. Like, he has security cameras in his house in like a secret room. Like, he has been manipulating this whole thing so that he can get free again. Here, it literally starts you off with the idea of he might genuinely be trying to change, and then little by little they introduce a small thing or tidbit to actually to actually, you know, show that he is a villain and that he's never been good. But the show is titled Daredevil Born Again, not Kingpin Born Again. And that's the biggest problem with this show as a whole is, yes, Kingpin's a co-lead, and it kind of makes up for some of it. But when Kingpin's the only consistent arc and has the only consistent character development, it really just goes to show the difference between the shows, and that they clearly focused on this more than this more when they were revamping everything. And honestly, Matt got the worst end of the stick because of an episode like episode 5, where it's literally just a bank robbery. Matt happens to be there. Like, okay, where are you going to throw Kingpin into that? You can't. It's not possible. So, like, I understand objectively that this is probably what the show was going to have to be for its first season because they revamped everything. That being said, I feel like give it a few more months before you release it. Then give it more time. Like I would much rather let you guys take more time to do reshoots if you're going to revamp it, create a more consistent flowing season one than the season one that we got, which isn't bad. It's still Daredevil. It's still grounded. The writing is still good for every episode, even if the episode doesn't connect to the overarching plot.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that it has to be as messy as it is. And this finale didn't do anything but prove that. The only thing it did do, which I was certain was going to happen, was it was going to set up an epic season 2. And at the end of this episode, we have Matt basically assembling the last few remnants of cops and people at Josie's bar, and being like, okay, this is the only group of people who aren't evil. We need to form a team to take out Fisk's like anti-vigilante task force. And, that opens up a lot of possibilities. Is Iron Fist going to come back? Is Jessica Jones going to come back? Luke Cage? Could we won't, but could we see Spider-Man appear? Because right now he's technically a vigilante just swinging around the city. Could we see all of these things? And I think that season 2 has a potential to really up the stakes in the Daredevil universe that we've never seen before, while at the same time we have a clear roadmap. We know where we're wanting to go. So yeah, overall, messy first season, good finale. I just wish it was better than what it was. So I guess
that's
disappointed,
fair.
but that's it. I'm disappointed,
That's fair.
but not disappointed like somebody.
Not disappointed enough to not put it above WandaVision at number 3 of your favorite Disney Plus shows.
Sure, like that's what I'm saying.
Again, this is what shocks me about your rating so much. Is I feel like you've talked about, like, granted, you talked about some positives, but it feels like overall your reviews week to week have been like, oh, I didn't like this, and I wish they did this differently, and it's hindered by reshoots. And then at the end, you're like, it's number 3, and I'm like, damn, okay.
Well, like, but it's like I said, and I had to stress this every time I talked about it, because yes, whereas these are things I wish they did differently, it's not bad. It is still really good, even though it's not what I was expecting.
Yeah, no, I get that. No, and I'm
But
not saying like you're lying or whatever.
No. Like the writing is good, the action is good, the cinematography is good. If you ask anybody, unless they're just haters, they would probably still objectively look at it and go, no, you're right about that. It is good. It just doesn't connect or flow together as a season should. And the problem I have with a lot of the other Disney Plus shows is, yeah, they connect, but some of the writing and some of the things, they just fall off and become typical, stereotypical things, unlike Born Again, which really invoked new ideas, new prospects, new things that allow the audience to just chomp at, and it's something new. That's the difference. And so that's fair. That's what Loki did. It was something new. It tried something new, and it did it very, very well. X-Men 97 was also the same way. I also go as far as to say Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man did the same thing too. The difference is I just prefer Daredevil to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Fair enough.
So that might be that. But as one show closes, another one is brought back. Another one begins. Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1 premiered last Sunday.
So I'll preface this. I don't think I've said anything about my thoughts on this episode to you. I watched.
You haven't.
Before I posted your review on the Instagram and TikTok and whatever, I did watch it. Now, granted, I would say I'm glad you didn't talk about really spoilers, because I watched it before I watched the episode, actually. And so I know generally your thoughts, but you know nothing about my thoughts. So I'm interested to get into this conversation, because I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts first, though.
I don't really have a complaint with this episode. I think as far as a season 2 premiere to a show that's already been established, I think it does everything right when it comes to checking off the boxes. I think it provides intrigue with a new type of idea or plot, while at the same time inviting the old elements back. And it really does a great job of having the consistent dialogue and writing that was so good about season 1. I specifically said Craig Mason and Neil Druckmann, my God, do they know what they're doing? And they are absolutely masters of their craft. I get that some of the dialogue scenes are pulled straight from the game. And so, you know, at some point it's like, okay, well, you can't exactly give them credit where
Well,
that's
Neil
due.
Druckmann was involved with the game and the show. So Neil
Right.
Druckmann is definitely now. Granted, he didn't write every piece of dialogue for either of them. He's more of the
Right.
game director as opposed to the one coding and writing every element of the story and things like that.
Right. Well, like, so we get new scenes that weren't in the game. Like and obviously
Well,
it's mostly Joel, but you have Joel in therapy, which was a long 10-15 minute scene of, you know, just two very seasoned actors performing a very well written scene together.
well,
And it was
and I have
beautiful.
I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I guess you bring up an interesting point, and it's how I want to like before we get too deep into this conversation. I already talked about with The Last of Us. I'd only played a few hours of the first Last of Us. I know I know of Abby's existence, and I will preface this with a spoiler. Even though I won't say exactly what happens, but I know what happens to Joel. We have talked about it on other episodes, but I'll still preface with a spoiler. I do know what happens to Joel, and I know that I knew about Abby's character existing. I know nothing about her. But I really don't know much about this game. You said that and you have played Last of Us. Like, how much do you know about Last of Us 2, the video game?
I've played Last of Us Part 1, and then I watched like a playthrough of Part 2 because at the time I didn't want to
Okay.
spend $60 or $70 on the game.
Okay.
So
So I guess you're saying that the entirety of Joel being in therapy is not in the video game. That's
as far
totally made up for the show.
as far as I'm aware, yeah, unless there was some sort of DLC where Joel goes to therapy, but that's a horrible DLC pack.
Because that's a really big element of this entire episode, and I
Yeah.
feel like what's going to influence Joel for whatever time he has in this season, I think that's very, I don't know, that's shocking to me because I agree that was a very, I don't know, I really liked the scene. I felt like, are we supposed to know who Eugene is?
So
Like,
you would not yet. There's a whole Bill and Frank style episode that's going to be dedicated to Eugene, what happened to him, how Joe killed him
okay,
the way he did. We actually in the game, as far as I remember, we don't actually ever see Eugene, and Gail is actually not Eugene's wife. Eugene's married to somebody else who does hate Joel for doing it, but they for the show flipped it so that we get
so that's a
more scenes
major
with
change.
it's a major change. Like not in the sense of it's going to derail where it actually ends up. If you
Yeah,
play the
yeah,
game, you know where
yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to end up. But I really appreciate this change because it adds more layers and more depth to something that is going to happen later on. It's like what they did with Ellie and Riley in season 1, where we knew
Mhm.
nothing about who Riley was, but Ellie kept addressing in like small little tidbits of things like, oh, you know, I killed people before. It's not the first, or I did have friends before I met Joel or whatnot. And then we get to see the whole thing that, you know, leads into that. And I don't know, man. I think that specifically with this episode, the thing they really only had to prove is, hey, we do have a clear plan for this. If you love the game, we're changing a few things, so buckle in for that. But hey, even though we changed it, look how good that writing is. Look how good that cinematography is. Look how good like we're doing everything. And then if you're a non-game player, hey, welcome back. Here's some new things that we get to throw at you, new ideas. And so I think that it just overall it's a really strong start. And I my God, dude, I love seeing Pedro Pascal as Joel. If Game of Thrones didn't exist, it would probably be my favorite character that he's ever played. He's just so good at it. And
Yeah. No,
Bella
he
Ramsey's
is.
really good as Ellie as well.
So, first of all, I love Pedro Pascal as an actor, as a human being. I love just watching him in interviews. He seems like such a teddy bear. And we get a lot more of that of this version of Joel, because this is 5 years after the events of season 1.
Sure.
So like I don't know. I really do. I feel like so here, okay. I do have, and I don't know how to frame this. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't want to call it a problem, but I guess I had an interesting experience watching this episode.
Okay.
I did admittedly mention at the end of season 1 that I wasn't sure if I really wanted a season 2, mainly because I know where this goes, but also just because like I felt like I got a lot out of these characters in that one season, and I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about season 2. And I will admit, I am a little bit hesitant still. And so the
Sure.
reason why I say that is because I think the character progression, it makes sense for their characters. It's even brought up in therapy with Joel, where it's brought up of like, are we seriously going to sit here and talk about the most lame ass stupid fucking problem in the entire world, that a 19-year-old doesn't want to spend time with her dad? Like, that's the most generic problem. Like, again, the character progression makes sense. I don't know. Ellie is really pissing me off, and I think that's done purposefully, but it admittedly
Sure.
does make it hard for me to watch the show with how much I grew to absolutely adore Ellie in the first season.
It's their
I
relationship.
really had a hard time. Exactly, the whole season 1 was Joel and Ellie's relationship, and now it's made very clear, especially again after knowing what happens with Joel, that where this season's going to go. And I just don't know if I like that direction as being what season 2 is going to be. I'm not saying it doesn't make
Sure.
sense, and I'm not saying that I would have had a better idea. I'm just saying, like, I had a really hard time watching Ellie kind of just I wrote it in my notes somewhere. I can't remember what I said specifically. But let me see. I want to quote myself
Ellie,
here if I can.
Ellie's being a dick to Joel. Please stop, Ellie.
Yeah, I wrote, honestly, fuck Ellie. And the reason I wrote that down is this was one of my last notes of the episode, and that was specifically during the scene where her and Dina kiss at the dance, and then this homophobic guy kind of comes in and makes an offhanded comment like, here's the thing. I thought the guy was justified before he made like very clear homophobic comment about like, oh, your kiss, like it's too like the two like that. I thought he was justified because like, bro, you're full on making out in the middle of the dance floor at this family dance. Like, stop it. Like this guy is justified for being angry, and then he very clearly makes a comment, and then Joel stands up for her, which I thought was gonna like. Again, I understand why Ellie's mad, because she doesn't feel like she wants Joel to step in it every time. But the degree as to which she makes a public scene of things honestly really pissed me off. I think that's like, again, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I just think that it was really shitty of Ellie in terms of like, look, man, I get that you're divided. Like, this is an instance where, like, I think him stopping her going on patrols, totally justified for her being angry. They went through so much. I get that he wants to protect her, but, like, let her be her own person. Like, I think all of the other elements, as annoying as it is to see Ellie, like, be rebellious, I think all that makes sense. I think the scene that really pissed me off was the scene where Joel stands up for her in terms of, like, hey, don't be homophobic against my daughter. And Ellie, like, publicly screams at him and, like, throws a whole fit about it. That scene just kind of pissed me off.
And again, look, I understand this problem. I think you have to watch the entire season to understand it, because there's so much you don't know. Like the whole one of the new intrigues into this season that they spark with this episode is, why is Ellie mad at Joel? Why is Joel mad at Ellie? Why are they on the outs? Why did Joel go to therapy about this? Obviously, you as the audience, you can put 2 and 2 together and probably guess why, but you truthfully have no idea. And it just goes deeper down the rabbit hole for them. And as a part of the game, it's the same thing, which I thought they would change about the show. I figured about the show, it would just be completely chronological. So you would actually see what happened. Then you'd understand when you got to this moment, exactly why they are the way they are. No. So the whole point in the game is you cut back in a bunch of flashbacks with Jelly and Ellie and Joel.
Yeah.
Jelly
so tell
and
us more about
Ol.
Jelly. Yeah. Tell us more about Jelly and Ol. Mm-hmm.
With Ellie and
Please do.
Joel, you cut back into a lot of flashbacks, and you see certain things take place after the hospital, and see some of their life, within the 5 years that they have, existed since then. And it really, those flashbacks are essential and crucial to understand this moment. So I understand as somebody who doesn't know what's going to happen and doesn't know, well, not fully, you just know where it ends. But as somebody who doesn't know what those flashbacks entail or what certain things mean and why characters are the way that they are right now, I understand completely why you're having that problem, because you just want to scream at the characters and go, no, don't do that. That's really stupid. You're acting childish.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
there is a whole reason for this to be happening. And as the show progresses, I think you'll find that problem is gone, purely because
and that's going to
of the
be
reasoning.
A really interesting thing, I guess, for our conversations going forward, because we're going to talk about this obviously as the season progresses, in terms of I'm coming in this as a guy who knows like literally 2 things about this entire season. I knew a lot about season 1. I know like 2 things that happened in this season, like basically nothing else. You know a lot more than I do, so it's going to be interesting. But yeah, again, I'm not saying that I don't think it makes sense. It's still just annoying. One other comment that I want to make. I wrote in all caps in my notes, I love Dina. Dina is my new favorite character of the entire show.
Dina's fantastic.
In one episode, she has become my favorite character in the entire show. Previously, I think it was Joel. I don't know. I just like Joel.
Everybody loves
Or
Joel.
maybe it was Bill and Frank. Maybe it was Bill and Frank.
Sure.
But I love, like, she is becoming, and here's one of the things that I actually really love about the way that this show is shot. And I don't know, again, I don't want to call this cinematography, but I guess the way that they tell stories is, we have the scene where Joel is working at the table on his electronics,
Right.
and someone walks through the door, and Joel says, "Oh, hey, sweetheart," and you're like, "Oh, it's Ellie," because we just finished following a scene with Ellie, and she's coming back from going out and hunting clickers or infected with Tommy. Right after this, we switch to Joel, which is our first time seeing Joel this season 5 years later, and he's very clearly older. I think he's supposed to be 61 or 62 in this season, or something like that, if I remember.
60 something, because he was 56 in the actual, like, in the first game, or at least in the show he was 56. I don't know in the game if he was older.
So then it would put him at 61. It would put him at 61 5 years later, give or take. So he's very clearly older. But anyways, what I was getting at is, we don't see who he says hello, sweetheart, to. So you think, oh, it's Ellie, but actually it's Dina. And that was something where I was like, oh, who's this girl? Because we already kind of find out that Joel and Ellie are on the outs through watching Ellie's scene with Tommy. So you're like, wait a second, are they just not talking like at all? And Joel has a new daughter now? Like, obviously too old to be his biological daughter, being that it's only been 5 years. But like, I know nothing about this. So I saw that and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And then it's found out that Dina is Ellie's new best friend, now lover. And it was I think it's very telling as to where the relationship is. And I love that storytelling metric of, you don't see who he says it to. I feel like everyone probably assumed it was Ellie, and then you find out that it's not. And then you find out that the reason he does that is because Dina is now more of a daughter to Joel than Ellie is. Dina even mentions, I think it was at the dance or a little bit before the dance, that Dina's going to go to Joel's house and watch movies with him without Ellie. Just like random, like best like, like, granted, you've gone over when I was having my brain surgery to go watch movies with my sister, but that's only because
Sure.
I was having, like, you don't just randomly go over to my house and watch movies with my parents. That's not so,
No,
like, we're best friends, but
no,
like that's not things regular friends would do. And I think that's an
sure.
interesting dynamic to now Joel has, I guess, another daughter figure that it appreciates him more. And I don't want to say he appreciates more, but their relationship gives a really, I think the reason I love Dina is one, because she is just a great character. She's just great, but she gives a
Right.
really, really phenomenal contrast as to where Ellie and Joel's relationship sits now versus where
Yeah.
it used to sit at, I don't even want to say the end of season 1, because obviously there was that tension after he rescued her, but like right
Yeah.
before they went into the hospital and where their relationship was then.
Right. Well, and Ellie and Dina are such an interesting comparison because, and I think when you talk about Dina and she's saying she's going to do all of these things and she wants to do all these things and probably at this point does. I mean, she doesn't know that Ellie is immune. Ellie has not said any of that yet.
Correct.
The only people who are here that actually know that are Tommy, Joel, Ellie, and maybe Tommy's wife. I feel like at this point,
I was
Tommy may have
gonna
said
say,
something
I
to
feel
her.
like I remember her maybe knowing. I don't remember entirely.
Yeah.
But yeah, no one knows. And we even have the scene after Ellie gets bit by the now more intelligent infected, which I am excited to see where that goes, because that whole scene I wrote down. Holy shit, I love this scene. It's so suspenseful. Like I'm sitting at the edge of my seat. It felt like a
Yep.
horror movie. I actually jumped when she got attacked. I loved that
Right.
whole entire sequence, and I love the
Right.
idea of there being more intelligent infected, but she gets bit and she has to cut herself to cover up the bite mark. And I also think it's really interesting. It's never mentioned, but you can very clearly see based on the way, and again, I guess this is the cinematography and the way that this, I think that the shot composition or shot like cinematography of this is honestly just in this one episode maybe better than season 1, because it is so subtle with things like the Dina, but also it's never mentioned about Ellie's tattoo, but you can very clearly see on some subtle zoom ins and focusing on Ellie's tattoo that the reason she has a full arm tattoo is to cover up the fact that she has been bitten.
Yeah. And I look, I think that the fact that Dina doesn't know just leads her to have this mindset of I feel bad for Joel because I genuinely like I love Ellie, but I don't know why Ellie's acting the way that she is.
Yeah.
And Joel keeps and it's worse for it's sad for Joel too because Joel keeps pawning it off as oh she's very she's in that teenage girl age where her dad isn't cool, doesn't want to talk to her dad, doesn't want to hang with her dad. But truthfully, again, as the audience, we can put two and two together to understand that's not actually what happened. There was something else that happened, and it
Yeah.
is also like they're not talking. If Joel goes to Ellie's room, Ellie will respond to him. It's not
Yeah,
great,
you have that
but
whole
like
scene with the
with the
guitar.
guitar,
Yeah.
we saw that. But then there's also the again, like Joel gets Ellie out there, and Joel's clearly there. He's been there the whole time. He's just not interacting with Ellie at this party, and it's not until Ellie needs saving that, or sorry, needs saving. I use quotations there. Um, that she gets pissed, and that the reason she gets pissed is because of the reason that we all know why. Joel went through this whole thing to save her, did all of these things, and then we can reasonably assume at this point that Ellie knows that something went wrong at the hospital and Joel did not tell the truth.
Was not
Which
fully truthful.
which also adds more weight to I don't need your, as Ellie says, I don't need your fucking help.
Well, and I do agree that, like, I don't know, and I don't want you to tell me. I don't think Ellie knows everything about what happened. Maybe she does, and we'll find out through flashbacks. I do think Ellie definitely suspects. And I think that that definitely does give a lot more of an interesting answer as to why Ellie is acting the way that she is, because through the end of season 1, it's made very clear. Granted, Ellie was never given the choice, but if having been given the choice, Ellie would have wanted to die because she wanted, she has the whole line at like, I think it was the second to last episode is it can't all be for nothing.
Yeah.
she has done so many atrocious things. Now, granted, she did it to survive, but she has done some bad things. She killed people and things like that. And her as a character, and I think it makes sense for her character, is like, I can't have this have all been for nothing. And then she had that her opportunity to do the right thing taken away from her. And this is something I am so torn on this, and I don't know how much more you have to say on this episode. So maybe we'll end it here. Maybe we'll talk about it more. But I just have one thing I really am very curious about, because it's hinted at back when there was the conversation with Abby, which definitely, and this is another thing I do know because there was a lot of controversy about it. I don't want to talk about controversy. I think it's stupid. But the character who plays Abby, I did not recognize as being Abby until they said her name, because she very much does look different than the images I've seen of Abby in the game. I don't have a problem with that. I think that it is whatever. Again, this is coming from a non-gameplay person. I think it's a stupid thing to be upset about. I think it's
agree.
fine.
I agree.
But anyways, what I wanted to say is there's a comment that's made with the Fireflies in terms of, oh, well, she was the cure, or they don't say that she was the cure, but it's insinuated. I'm pretty sure it was insinuated. I can't remember if it was actually said or not. But then there was the whole comment made about, we don't even know if it would have worked. And I think that's a really, really interesting question. And the reason I'm torn on it is I don't know if I want an answer, and I don't know if we're going to find an answer on would this have actually worked. Because I think that would have been another really interesting way. I kind of want this to be a show now, honestly, is the alternative ending where Joel doesn't save Ellie, and then the cure doesn't work, and then Joel goes on this whole like revenge quest. I think that'd be really interesting, because I don't know, what would have happened if it didn't work, or they tried it and Ellie dies and it doesn't cure everyone, and it was only something that helped her. Because, and I think that's the reason I bring that up is something that's interesting, is because we have the whole thing with Sam back in season 1, Sam and Henry, where she tries to rub her blood and it doesn't work. And again, you could be insinuating there that maybe it's just Ellie that's immune, and maybe it would have all been for nothing, and Ellie can be all, and maybe this is something we do find out, and maybe Ellie feels remorse for feeling mad at Joel for protecting her, but Joel wouldn't have known if it worked or not. But again, I'm so torn on as to if I want an answer to the question of would the cure have worked or not, because I think that would split so many things wide open, and just it would change the way you view the characters. I feel like entirely is that one question of, again, goes back to what Ellie said. It can't all be for nothing. But if the cure would have worked, then yes, what Joel did was an absolutely atrocious. It was probably it is the worst thing that Joel has ever done. Granted, he was saving a life, but doomed the world. Or if it wouldn't have worked, then these people would have killed Ellie for literally no reason at all.
It's no, and again, look, I love playing the hypotheticals game with The Last of Us, because there's so many things like, what if Bill and Frank had actually survived? Would Joel have pawned Ellie off to Bill and Frank, and then would they have died, or would they have actually gotten there and finished the journey? There's so many hypotheticals in the show and options that I love playing that with. I love playing that game with people because I could go for hours on it. But I think as an episode, we have a whole lot of season left. Anything can change.
Well,
I just think as of right now, the episode is well written. It's a great re-entry as far as here's the world that you knew. Here are the new ideas that we're introducing into this world, such as, the clickers are now a bit, they're like predators stalking a prey. They're a bit more sentient about it. Here is some new characters with Gail, Dina, and Abby. And then here is a rift between your two lead characters that you love so dearly. What the heck? It does so much right with allowing us to be brought back into this world, while at the same time allowing new intrigue and new ideas flow. I think that they did a good job starting that off. They just need to be consistent with it now. They need to continue continue letting us in on things, continue building the characters, which they've done successfully they've done successfully time and time and again. So as of right now, I have no fear that they aren't going to screw anything up, but anything can change. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
I don't want to do
Are
this.
we switching to our main topic of the episode?
Let's go from one fantastic video game adaptation to a video game
Another
adaptation.
fantastic video game adaptation.
A video game adaptation.
So I'm gonna start this conversation off really quickly by telling a short story. I hinted at this to Carson before we started recording, and I kind of touched on a little bit. So I originally had planned on watching this movie on Friday of this week. So yeah, it would have been yesterday. But I was so just beaten down by the gym that I ended up like switching my gym day and what day I was seeing the movie. And I made that decision really last minute. Like I made that decision super like I think I made that decision at like as I clocked off work at like 5:30. And so I signed up. So I am now an A-list member of the sorry, I don't know why I checked my phone. I don't need to. I am now an AMC A-lister. Just because of this podcast, because of how many movies we're gonna be talking about. I mean, we have Lilo and Stitch coming up. We have How to Train Your Dragon. We have Mission Impossible. We're gonna talk about a lot. We have so much to talk about over the next few weeks and months that I was like, screw it, I'm gonna sign up for a. Also, I did not realize this at first, and I am so glad I signed up for AMC A List, because at first I was a little bit down because with Regal you can watch unlimited movies each month. With AMC A-lister you can only watch 3 a month, or sorry, 3 a week, which 3 a week is a lot of movies. Like, admittedly, I'm not going to use that every month. One thing I did not realize, though, and I don't know how Regal treats this, but it doesn't really matter because there's no Regals near me, is I can see 3 movies a week in any format. I can see IMAX, 3D. So I did not watch the Minecraft movie in IMAX just because it's still, I don't even know if it ever played in IMAX, but it definitely wasn't when I was going to see it. At least there wasn't a time slot available. I think it was playing in IMAX because I'm pretty sure I saw the option. It was just like earlier in the day. But I am super excited to watch, like, for instance, the Mission Impossible movie in IMAX, or Lilo and Stitch in IMAX, or Superman in IMAX, or Fantastic Four in IMAX. That's going to be, because I think I've seen like 2 movies in IMAX, and that's just because AMC A-list is like $22, $23 a month. I think I'm paying like $24 because the only pricing difference is what states you want to be able to watch movies in. And so I choose the option that's the middle tier. That's the middle tier, mainly because if I go back, so we live in 2 different states, which is why we record this podcast remotely. If I go back to spend time with you, Carson, I want to be able to like watch movies in Florida where you're at. Same if you come up here. But anyway, the story I wanted to tell is I signed up for AMC A-lister at like 5:30 or something. Looked online to see what time a Minecraft movie was playing. I saw what I thought was the closest theater to me, because there's way more AMCs than there need to be within a proximity of me. And I booked the ticket, and I like, it started at like 7:20 or something like that. So I walked over to the Metro. As I'm walking to the Metro, I'm pulling up like the exact, I'm like, I thought it was the theater I was thinking of. So I was like, oh, let me just put in the theater into the app, and it was not giving me a metro route. It was only giving me a bus route, and I hate the buses up here. So I was like, that's really interesting. I know the theater I'm thinking of that I thought I booked this at was accessible by the Metro. Come to find out, I was not paying enough attention when I booked the ticket, booked it for the wrong theater that I could not get to in time to see the movie. So luckily with AMC A-lister, you can cancel your reservation, no questions asked, up until the movie, and it gets removed from your 3 movies. So it doesn't even negatively impact you whatsoever. So I canceled the movie. I'm standing at the Metro station, canceling my movie ticket, being like, oh shit, I just walked all the way to the Metro. I got to find out if there's even a showing at the like location I want to see this at. So I pull up I finally, took me like fucking 5 minutes to remember the location of the AMC that I wanted to go to. Finally pulled it up. They had a showing at 8:30. And at this point, I think it was like 8. Like it was 8 o'clock. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll be able to get there in time. It's just like totally fine. So I go down and I'm so frazzled from this whole experience of like walking down and my legs are killing me from the gym. I'm tired from work and I get on the wrong metro going the wrong direction. So
Bro.
luckily I realized it very quickly, so I was able to get off at the next metro stop, but I get on the wrong metro going the wrong direction, zoom off to the wrong metro stop, go, oh shit, have to switch metros. I strolled up to the theater like at the front door at like 8:35, so like 5 minutes after the movie was supposed to start. This is why I hate how long it takes for movies to actually start when you're sitting there in the theater early. But I also do appreciate that I did not miss any of the Minecraft movie because I had to stroll up to the theater and then get in, go to the bathroom and find my seat. When I strolled in, I did text Carson this. There was, I'm pretty sure it was a couple, but they were probably 16 years old, if I had to guess, sitting in the back row of the theater. There is a child and their dad sitting in front of me. And then there is, I didn't realize this until the movie ended. There's 2 girls, probably 17, 18, like in one of the front rows of the theater. And then there's a family with 2 small children, the mom and the dad, all the way at the end of the row that I'm sitting on. I'm in smack dab in the middle of the theater. That is the only people in this entire theater. That like I'll admit, and granted, I knew that this wasn't going to happen. One, because I'm seeing the movie at 8:30 at night on a Thursday, and it's like 3 weeks after the movie came out. I was kind of hoping that this would be a packed theater that would get like blown the fuck up with people saying chicken jockey. People did say chicken jockey. I will say. Like,
Yeah.
Out of the like 4 people in the theater, people did say it. But yeah, I just wanted to give that prelude because one, I don't know how long we actually have to talk about the Minecraft movie, but I also thought it was funny that that night as a whole was a mess. So I'm sitting, and I guess this does kind of key into what another reason why I wanted to share this is I'm sitting down in the theater, frazzled, frustrated. I strolled up late. I'm in pain from the gym. So I sit down and I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to watch this piece of shit movie that I know I'm not gonna love all that much. And the second the movie starts, I did not stop laughing. Dude, I laughed so hard and so loud that the entire course of this movie, both because I think the jokes were actually funny sometimes, and also because holy shit, this movie is okay. I have a theory, and then I'll let you start talking about your thoughts. I am convinced, and I don't know at what point of the movie that at what point of creating this movie that they realized this. I don't know if this was the intention or if this was something that came up later. They knew what they were making with this movie. There is no doubt in my mind that they did not know that this movie was just objectively a bad movie. Because here's the thing. Let me just get it out there. I love this movie. I had an absolute blast with this movie. It is a 4 out of 10 movie at best. It is a 4 out of 10 that I love like a 10 out of 10. I had a 10 out of 10 time watching this movie, and it is a 4 out of 10 movie. And I'm pretty convinced that at some point in time, they realized that this movie was a 4 out of 10 and leaned into that. Because there's no way in hell that, I guess maybe I'm giving the movie more credit than it's due, but there's no way in hell they made this movie and had some of the scenes that they had in this movie and didn't know that it was the stupidest fucking thing to ever be put on a movie screen. There's no way that they thought that elements that they put in this movie were actually genuinely good movies. And they must have leaned into that whole, like, The Room is the best bad movie of all time. I put Minecraft up there with that, with the best bad movie ever made.
Sure.
Like, it is hilariously bad.
Sure. All right, I'm just gonna readjust here. I'm just gonna get comfortable for a second. Fuck off. Fuck all the way off. No, I agree with you. I look, I mentioned this in my 3 minute review. The filmmakers knew what they were doing. They weren't trying to make The Godfather or the next Shawshank Redemption. You know, they knew what they had on their hands, and they just went balls to the walls awful with it because they knew that it would entertain. First off, it's not going to take a lot to entertain a young kid who loves playing Minecraft and is just going to go into the theater and enjoy, be swept away into this world. So from that perspective, great, you did your job correctly. If you're an adult, you're gonna have a fun time watching this and going, that is horrible. The physics aren't physicsing. The dialogue is the worst dialogue I think I've ever seen.
Laughably bad.
I could have cared less for the sister. I don't know why she was even in the movie.
I have the cast pulled up here. I took screenshots of the IMDb of this movie.
That's good.
So you have Natalie, who was played by Emma Myers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's. Yeah, that was the character's name. This is why I pulled it up, is because I knew that neither of us would remember the characters' names because we don't give a fuck about anyone but Henry, Steve, and Garrett. Those are the only two characters you actually care about.
Steve, I remember Steve. I don't remember Garrett. I remember Jason Momoa. I don't remember what's his name. You just said it. I don't even care. Finn.
Henry the kid.
Henry's
the kid.
I look at Henry and go, oh, that's the kid.
Hank. I think Hank is what
Hank.
Yeah, I think Garrett calls Henry Hank, I think is like the joke.
Well, I didn't even know that was a joke. I just that's the problem. It's a lot of unintentional humor, and then if it is intentional humor, it's cringy, horrible humor. I think there was one genuine audible laugh I had, and I don't even remember the joke, so it really could not have been that great of a joke. But there's a scene with Momoa air thrusting to show his dominance at one point, and I just sit there going, "What am I watching? What is this thing? What is happening?" Also, okay, if you've played the game, and this might be a minor thing to complain about because it's Minecraft. You're not going to look too heavily into it or care about it. When were skeletons ever able to ride spiders? When was that ever a thing? That's a thing?
That has been a thing.
Well, I didn't know that. So I was watching this movie going, that doesn't make sense. Like, I've never seen
that
is
a thing. That is, well, it's rare. It's rare. It's about as rare, I believe, as a chicken jockey is.
Gotcha.
Which a chicken jockey is also a real thing in the games.
Gotcha.
But it is just a very, very rare thing.
That was a bad example, but maybe I'll think of one later on. But there were a lot of times in this movie where they just broke the game's rules and did things that the game never was able to do, and I'm like, why is this a thing?
Well, an example is the tater tot shooter or the double water bucket that Jason Momoa's that Garrett makes.
Sure.
Here's the thing. I didn't mind that. I thought I would, honestly, but I think I got at the point into the movie where they started playing with things. I had already accepted that all the rules have been thrown out for this movie and we're just here to have a good time. And I think that's one of the reasons why I actually genuinely enjoyed this movie. I'm not even pandering or glazing this movie. I genuinely enjoyed my watching experience of this movie. Again, it is a 4 out of 10 that I had a 10 out of 10 watching. But I think the only reason I was able to get to that point is because right when the movie starts and you start out with Steve's backstory in terms of how he got into the mines, you understand immediately that this movie is going to be the stupidest thing you've ever watched. And you have two options at that point. And I think we kind of divulged at that point. You kind of went along the lines of, this is really stupid. What the fuck am I watching? And I went along the lines of, holy shit, this is so stupid. I love this. I'm going to throw myself into this.
It's just I don't know, man. This, you're never gonna get films like this again unless they make a sequel. You're never gonna get another film.
I'm pretty sure I saw literally yesterday when I got home from the movie, or sorry, on Thursday when I got home from the movie, that they're already in negotiation. Because here's the thing, this is already the top grossing. It is the top grossing movie opening of the year and the highest grossing video game adaptation movie even topping the Mario movie.
Yeah, which I also have my own qualms with the Mario movie. I don't think it's bad, but there's things I don't like about that movie either, and so that one still surprises
I
me
mean, it's
that
not
that
a
one even
perfect
topped.
movie, but I enjoyed it.
That's what I'm saying. But like, okay, so here's another example I wanted to include, and this generally is like a thing towards the film, and this is something that even like letting go and having fun with, I just couldn't do because it made no sense as to why she was even included in this. Um, Danielle Brooks' character. What
Yeah,
was her
I
name?
was gonna Dawn. Dawn.
Dawn.
I
Never
only
would
know
have
that
even been
because
able
I
to tell
have
you
it
that.
pulled up right here on the screen.
Never would have been able to tell you that.
No,
She did not have to be in this movie. You could have wiped her from the
correct.
movie, and the movie still would have
Correct.
happened exactly how they wanted it to. It was a needless uh, character to add, and they probably only added her because Danielle Brooks is a comedic actor who some people genuinely enjoy, and they just threw her in there because she can be campy and hokey and funny like Momoa can play into it.
Well,
And so,
and that's where we get into the 4 out of 10, where I do really think that maybe even 3 out of 10, honestly, in terms of a movie, is
yeah,
the story is shit. I think the story is a terrible story. The character progression makes no sense. The girls split off. You see them fight like skeletons once for like a badass woman scene, and then never again, and then they reunite. The pacing of this movie is break fucking neck speed.
yeah,
I don't know how long this movie is. I think it's an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, something like that. And holy shit.
sure.
See, it's funny because in your 3-minute review, you had mentioned that you were like looking down at your watch, being like, oh, when this movie is going to end. I never felt like that during this movie, but mainly because the movie was moving so insanely fast, where I was like, oh, boom, 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 boom. Things are just happening. Like,
That's why I
there's
kept
never a
looking at my
moment where
watch.
things aren't happening. And I think that is a huge hindrance because you never grow to care about any of these characters because you never have any time to get into their reason. It's like the whole thing, like the whole like magnum opus of the characters is Natalie learning to accept that Henry is creative and she's stepping into this motherly role. When the fuck did that happen? Like, why does she now care? Because you never see them interact like this entire movie. She goes from being mad at him to he saves the day and he's no longer mad. Like, there's literally nothing for any of these characters to progress whatsoever, other than maybe Garrett. I think Garrett should have been the main character of this movie, and I think he really stole the show, mainly because he's Jason Momoa, and I think Jason Momoa and Jack Black knew this movie was dog shit and just leaned into the campiness of it, which is again another
It's
reason
just
why I
like
really enjoyed it.
it's
Well,
just
because here's
like the
let me.
like. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the reason why I know for a fact. I don't know if you did you stay for the end credit scene?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So when I was waiting for the end credit scene, I was actually watching the credits. All of those stupid songs, the farewell to I can't remember the dog's name, but Steve's farewell to his dog, and the chicken song, and like all of those stupid songs, all of those were written and produced by Jack Black himself.
Yeah,
That
that
was
doesn't
not
surprise me.
something that he was forced to sing. That was something that he wrote himself, and that's how I know that. That's, I guess, what confirms my theory of they knew that this movie was going to be a bad movie and allowed it to happen just to be entertaining. And I personally don't have a problem with that,
No, I
but
don't
I think
either.
I
No.
understand people having a problem with it.
Well, and
Sorry,
I
what
think
were you gonna say?
the furthering that point, the reason people have a problem with it, and okay, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but I also do in one sense, which is the reason people care. Movies should be fantastic. People should be able to bring forth ideas that are creative and new, or if they are a sequel, are just as good as the original, and they have a reason for justifying their existence. When a film is there for the sake of being bad, it makes you go, why would you make this other than it was fun? I'm never going to watch this again. This is a film that I'm going to talk about here and now. I might make a joke about later on, or in reference to bad movies, I might make a reference to this. This is never going to be talked about ever again, and I'm never going to watch it again. So it makes you wonder, why would you ever make this movie? And so I understand why people get upset about it and why people have a problem with that. My other half is, this was friggin' hilarious and I loved every second of it. Please make another one of these. But objectively, as somebody who like again, Goodfellas, Godfather, Shawshank Redemption, Apocalypse Now. These are films that I love, and they're original, and they're creative, and uh, they're they're cinema. This is an abomination of something like that. And so I'm switching my gears for a second. I'm objectively going to the realistic side for a second as I'm saying this, because realistically, films like this are the problem. They are films that are uninspired. They are just, you're going to make your money off of it. It's going to cash a check because it's the Minecraft movie. And so you don't even like, here's the thing. I'm happy that they did it, but I also wish there would have been a part of them that said, can we at least try to make a good movie? And a good example of that is the Lego movie. The Lego movie came out in 2014 and was a big marketing tool, or at least that's what people saw it as, was a big marketing tool for Lego before it came out. They never thought it would be good. And it turns out that it's one of the greatest animated movies ever made because of how originally creative it was.
It is an objectively fun time and an objectively good movie from a storytelling perspective, from a voice acting perspective, from a cinematography perspective. It is objectively a good movie. And that's where, like, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I understand and hear all your points. I just think it's one of those things where I feel like this movie serves a little bit more, like, I guess I don't disagree with you, and I do wish that they would have tried a little harder. Because, like, I guess a good example of, like, how clearly, like, so you can understand that they didn't try at multiple points of the movie, but I think the magnum opus of, like, oh, they really did not give a shit about making this a good movie is the Elytra scene, and how unbelievably god fucking awful that scene looked. It was a funny scene, but I have never, dude, the Star Wars prequels, the original Star Wars movies in the 90s and 80s and early 2000s had better green screen than this movie could have even dreamed of having, specifically with that scene, which I just want to say is really interesting to me, because I actually think that the world is really well done. I know a lot of people had a problem with the way that the world looked. I personally thought that the world was beautiful, and actually it impressed me seeing it on screen in terms of how the way the sheep looked, the way the wood looked. I thought it all actually looked way better than I expected. But then you get to a scene like the Elytra scene, and I'm sitting there laughing, half because it's stupid and silly, and half because, oh my god, I can't believe this got greenlit. Because, oh my god, this looks atrocious.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to what I was saying about physics, let's use the Elytra scene as an example for physics. Yeah, okay, sure, it's funny to look at, but objectively, Jack Black is on the bottom of this Elytra while Jason Momoa is the top, right? Jason Momoa is not holding on to Jack Black. Jack Black is holding on to Momoa, and Jack Black is on the bottom. And I'll also add this. It's not like he's wrapping his arms around Momoa's legs. He is holding on delicately, like he's clearly lying on a box with Momoa on top of him. And he's just like, okay, here we go. In all seriousness and realness, Jack Black would have fallen off the second he grabbed onto Momoa. And I'm just like, oh, come on, man. And again, like, it's something to laugh at. I'm bringing this back to the main point of what I said of, like, objectively, this movie never should have been made. I think it's a from a filmmaking perspective, it is an abomination. It should never have been made. It should never have been greenlit. They didn't try. They didn't care. Everybody had a fun time putting it together, sure, and it's bringing joy to people, and that's a positive. I'm glad it's bringing joy to people, but objectively, the writing is horrible. The CG, honestly, is fine at times. It's not perfect, but for what they were trying to do with an entire green screen room, it's fine. It's just difficult because I have such a hard time justifying a movie's existence when it never should have been made. This is one of those movies that never should have been made, and it's the same. Honestly, I also let me give this as an example, because we were talking about movies that try, movies that don't try. This movie didn't try, and it's funny. It's fun to laugh at. You're never going to talk about it again, and it's done. Don't get mad. There's only one Marvel movie, MCU movie, that I've ever watched, and I went, I didn't need that movie. And other than a few things, I wish it never existed. And that is Black Widow. Black Widow is a movie that tried, and I think it failed on a lot of ways. The only ways I don't think it failed was Red Guardian and Yelena. I think all the stakes were gone from that movie, and I think that the story got really lost at a lot of times. I thought that I didn't care for Natasha's character arc, because her arc was,
We'd already seen the end of her arc, and
we had
why are
seen
we
the end
going?
of
Like,
her arc,
we already know
and
where
this
this
didn't
ends.
do anything. It's just like, and so we see and then also some of the acting and the CG in that movie is just god awful. It's
Well,
worse
yeah,
than in
like
the
again,
Minecraft movie.
you go back to the explosion scene with Yelena on the aircraft carrier or whatever it was, or the giant floating island in the sky, and how terrible that green screen looked harkens back to how bad the CG looked in the Minecraft movie. And I think here's
Yeah,
the thing. I think your connection between, like, the Black Widow one is an all right comparison. I think your comparison to the Lego movie is probably the best comparison. I think it's a better comparison than even the Mario movie is to this, in terms of a movie, because the reason why I say that is because Mario is something that I feel like genuinely is something that is made for all ages, and so is Lego. But I guess it's especially early on, and the Legos that are focused on in the Lego movie is very clearly directed at a younger audience. Minecraft, here's the difference. Like, I grew up with Minecraft. Minecraft was one of the first games that I got really, really into, and now I'm an adult
sure,
going to watch this movie. And that's where I think the Lego movie did a really, really good job of making a kids movie that adults could really enjoy. Minecraft made a movie that kids are not going to care. Here's the thing. I think this movie is fine to exist because I think kids can objectively have a good time. They're not going to care about the story. They're not going to care about the bad
sure,
CGI. They're not going to care. I think this movie is probably a fantastic movie for kids. I think where the movie fails is an area where something like the Mario movie and the Lego movie did not fail, and that is making it an enjoyable experience for adults to also watch. Because one,
sure,
again, I don't have kids, so I'm not saying, oh, adults are going to be the only adults that are going are adults bringing their kids. I'm an adult who grew up on Minecraft who is now going to watch the Minecraft movie because that's what he grew up with. But there's
sure,
also a lot of adults who didn't grow up with Minecraft who are only seeing this because their kids want to see it, who you don't want to make miserable in this movie. And I think that a lot of those adults might be miserable watching this movie because there's not, unless you're the type of adult that can let loose like I did and just have fun and be like, oh, this is a hilariously stupid movie, you're not going to have a fun time watching this movie, and that hinders the
sure.
movie a lot.
And
There was
again,
nothing here for adults.
I also harken back to the idea of, we grew up with this game. We know exactly what this game is. There are some adults who did not, and they are generally going to be miserable because they don't even know what the heck Minecraft is. And so I'm not going to harken on it too much because I've already said what I want to say. Had a fun time in the theater. I thought it was a blast to watch and make fun of. We didn't have a chicken jockey moment. People did shout chicken jockey, and I had about half a theater filled at mine, which was actually okay. Um, I had a fun time watching with the friends I watched it with, but objectively, as an actual film, look, if you're a film goer, skip this movie. Go watch Sinners or go watch The Accountant 2. I promise you'll have a much more like enjoyable, fun time. Just enjoying something that's like actual cinema, and that's just how it is.
Yeah. Well, so I have a few other things to say on the movie. One, it's really funny because we talked about the whole chicken jockey thing. So chicken jockey was said, like, it was shouted by some of the people in the theater, but it was really funny because I'm very clearly like laughing at how stupid this movie is. And I had mentioned that there was a mom two kids and the dad that were at the end of the aisle that I was sitting on. And me and the mom kept like looking at each other every time because I'd laugh out loud and she would laugh out loud at how stupid this movie was when something like objectively just we'd both look at each other and be like, what the fuck are we watching? Like we'd literally like look at each other and we'd go like this to like the screen and be like, huh? Like what?
It brings people
Which I
together.
thought was
It's
like
great.
yeah, exactly. Like I thought that was, and again, you ask why this movie was made, and one, it's made for kids, but I do think that it like I think this movie didn't serve a purpose, but found a purpose. Like this movie, like at its core, does not have a purpose. This movie is very stupid, but I think this movie became a purpose when it started bringing people together. Now, granted, I don't support people causing riots and burning down theaters, but I do think that it's really fun seeing everyone enjoying how silly this movie is together and how like of a cultural phenomenon this movie has become. And this movie wasn't made with a purpose, but it found its purpose. And I think that that's totally fine. Again, I'm looking at this mom who I've never met before and will never see again, being like, wow, like bonding, never saying a word to each other about how silly this movie is. And I think that's just a really interesting, fun time that serves a purpose of connecting us together where we never would have connected in the past. I want to call out a few other things. One, another moment where you realize that this movie is not taking itself seriously whatsoever is when they reveal the big General Pig guy and they say his name. Do you remember his name? I want you to say. Do you remember his name?
Chungus was the only one that's the only name I remembered was Chungus. Because I laughed at that. I was like, that's absurd.
General Chungus. And that's where you go, like, okay, this is very clearly a movie made for kids who know about Big Chungus and like that type of thing. And it's playing into those jokes. Do you want to know who voiced General Chungus?
Who?
So you might not know the name, but you'll know what. So his name is Jared Hess.
Continue.
General Chungus was voiced by the director of this movie.
Okay.
Jared Hess is the director of a Minecraft movie and also the voicing of General Chungus, which I did not realize until I was looking up and pulling up the cast so that I could remember their names and who played them. I found that stupidly hilarious in terms of like, again, the director knew what he was doing exactly because he put himself in the stupidest character possible.
Well, and
I want to bring up another thing.
There are some things in this movie that, you know, look, they put a few thoughts into some things. And one specific, I have
there are 3 total brain cells used on this movie.
3. Well, and that's, you know, the Minecraft YouTuber cameos. You had a few various different people show up, and then obviously the Technoblade. Like, I guess
I love the Technoblade one. I really did like that. I will say I am shocked by, and I believe Valkyrie mentioned that she was supposed to have a cameo in the movie and was actually cut from the movie. There really wasn't as many. There were 2 cameos that I clocked of people involved in Minecraft. Granted, I might have missed some because, again, I don't know every Minecraft YouTuber, every Minecraft person out there, but there were only 2. One's a YouTuber and one's a person who's involved in the development of Minecraft. One is Dan TDM. Dan TDM was at the auction house. I know you probably clocked that one.
I got it immediately.
The only other cameo that I clocked in this entire movie was when Jennifer Coolidge's character, Marlene, is at dinner with the villager. Their waiter is Jeb. Jeb has been very involved in the creation of Minecraft. He's one of the faces of Minecraft, especially now that Notch is gone. So that was the only other cameo that I clocked. Are there any that you know of that I'm missing? Because that was one thing I'm genuinely shocked by with how creator focused and how creator driven the Minecraft ethos is and popularity is. I am shocked that some of the biggest names like Stampy wasn't involved in this movie whatsoever. He's arguably one of the biggest. Sundy's another one who helped popularize Minecraft. There were a lot of, and granted, there's too many of them, and unfortunately, a lot of them have gotten into a lot of controversy. And Dan TDM is one. Dan TDM is one of the very, very few who has remained uncontroversial. Same with Sundy and Stampy, though.
that's why some of these people just can't be like, they did as much as they could, but like some people can't because they've been caught up in
Well, like,
controversies.
I think
That's all it
probably
is.
the most influential early Minecraft YouTubers, like Jerome ASF, Bayesian Canadian, Sky Does Minecraft, all of them. I think Jerome is the only one that is mostly like Jerome's like stepped away. I don't think it was because of controversy. You also have Vicstar, but Vicstar is now involved in KSI's whole group. He's no longer
Yeah.
like Minecraft focused.
Yeah.
But like there are some that escaped the controversy, but not a ton of them. Because again, Scott is Minecraft. Popular MMOs is another one who got arrested in a big controversy. And like, unfortunately, Minecraft YouTubers as a whole do have a very big negative connotation to them.
Dream is a big one.
Yeah, Dream's another really big one. Tommy Innett's another one, which is why like I do appreciate what was there in terms of Dan, Technoblade, and Jeb being in the movie. I do wish that there was a little bit more of a nod to the community. That is the in my opinion, the only reason this game got as big as it did is because of the content creators that drove the popularity, and we didn't get a big. Maybe we will in the second movie. I know it's a stupid complaint, but we'll end off this topic of the Minecraft movie with one last thing that I want to bring up, and that's something that we have not talked about at all, and that is Jennifer Coolidge's character arc in
Oh my
this
God.
whole. It
Funny.
it
Funny.
was so like I think that is one of the actually genuinely funny, like not because it's because it's stupid, but also just because it is the most self-aware stupid scenes in my opinion.
It's so stupidly funny. I love that
And
so much.
yeah, it's Jennifer Coolidge hits the villager with her car. Then she takes him out to dinner because she got divorced. And she's lonely now. And I thought that was just a whole funny like character arc. I think the funniest thing was the mid-credit scene. That wasn't technically mid-credits, it was what happened while the credits were rolling, which is when you find out, well, it's mentioned already, so you already know, but her ex-husband is one of the first characters we meet, which is the gym teacher, science teacher, and something he teaches like
Yes.
fucking everything.
Yeah.
And he rushes in and finds her with the villager. And then the villager starts just speaking in just beautiful voice English. Like, oh my God, it was hilarious. And then Jennifer Coolidge's character, Marlene, starts speaking in villager. And it was, yeah.
It's like I didn't laugh because the joke was funny. I laughed at how stupid it was. That was
Yeah.
my thing. Because like I will be honest, that was another cringe where I was like, please, Jennifer Coolidge, please stop speaking villager. Please, for the love of God, just go do a White Lotus season 4 or whatever. I know that show's not getting picked up again. Please go do American Pie 15 or something. Please do anything else other than speak villager. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying though. It's look, overall, this film is bad. I had a fun time with it though. I enjoyed watching with my friends, laughing at the absurdity of it, laughing at how bad some of these things are, and you just go with the flow, enjoy it while you're in the moment. Even though objectively, I think it is a abomination from start to finish, and I'm so happy I
Fair
never have
enough.
to talk about it again.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll go ahead and end this segment and go into
Oh boy.
what is typically a pretty short segment. I don't know how long we're going to go on with this, but that's the what are we looking forward to segment. And the reason why I say I don't know how long we're going to go on with this is because something that's actively going on as we speak in Japan is Star Wars Celebration. I have been, you've actually seen me in a hat, my Star Wars hat I got at a Star Wars Celebration. I've been to Star Wars Celebration twice, both in Orlando, Florida. It was 2016, 2017, and then 2019, I believe, were the 2 years that I went.
Sure.
Something like that.
But they
And I
announced
love Star
a
Wars.
bunch of properties. Yeah.
Yeah.
Announced a
I
bunch of
love
new
Star Wars Celebration.
properties
I
and
just say that
ideas.
because, like, I love Star Wars. I actually almost went to the one in Japan when they announced that it was in Japan. I was like on the verge of booking a ticket and going to Japan for this. I decided not to. It's very expensive, but I do want to go to. I love Star Wars Celebration. It's genuinely one of my favorite conventions. And so the reason we're talking about Star Wars Celebration is because I think there's going to be, I don't know if there's going to be more big announcements. They might have front loaded all their announcements on the first day. But they have announced, so, and maybe you can shed some light on this. I know of 2 absolutely 100% confirmed announcements that have come out of this. And then I've heard some things that I don't know how confirmed they are because I haven't actually watched them on stage. I've seen people talk. I've seen one person talk about them and nothing else, so I don't know how true they are. But let's start with the
Okay.
things that are confirmed.
Okay.
We're getting a Ryan Gosling starred Star Wars movie.
By Sean Levy. Yeah.
Correct.
Which that was a
Anything,
rumor for a
thoughts on
while.
that? Anything
Uh,
to say on that?
I like Ryan Gosling as an actor. He's very good in almost everything he does. Sean Levy is a pretty big wild card. Recently, he's been on an upward slope with Deadpool, Wolverine, and Free Guy, but he is a pretty big wild card in regards to making an actual good film. But right now, we'll see what happens. I think that'll be interesting. I like the idea that because I think it's about Ryan Gosling as like a star pilot, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, and it takes place after the events of the most recent trilogy. So this isn't looking back. This is actually one of the first thing. Actually, this will be the first thing, from my understanding, from what I saw, that takes place after the prequels.
Okay, then yeah.
And I'm curious to see what they do with that in terms of maybe a little bit of retconning comes out of this movie, maybe a little bit of changes. I don't know. But again, this is, from my understanding, the first canon thing that will be happening that takes place after the prequels.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We just need to know more about it before I can get like more thoughts on it. But I like it so far. I like the idea of it.
And it comes out, I can't remember it. So it comes out in 2027, right? I think it's May 2027, like May
I think
something, not May the
Yeah.
4th. But from what I remember, it's supposed to come out on like a very specific day. It's like the 50th anniversary of Star Wars or something. Like it comes out on like an actually important day for Star Wars.
I'm sure we'll figure that out later. Well, no, because the original Star Wars was 77, right?
Well, so
1977.
the second Star Wars celebration that I went to, which I think was 2022, maybe it was, no, it wasn't 2022. This was pre-pandemic. The second Star Wars celebration I went to, whatever year it was the 40th anniversary of Star Wars as a whole.
Okay.
And that was like 8 years ago or something like that. So
okay, well, because maybe it's coming out on the 50th of A New Hope, which would make sense.
Maybe
if it's 20.
I think it might be. I think it was the 50th anniversary of New Hope is when this movie drops, which is very.
We also had the one that I'm most excited for, which is the Maul series, which I've been wanting that for a long, long time. I think that is
Confirmed to.
I think that is confirmed long overdue.
Confirmed to be animated, which I know had a few people upset. I don't have a problem with. Excuse me, I don't have a problem with because I love the voice actor for Maul.
Yes, yeah, he's good. He's really good.
Yeah, he's also like insanely knowledgeable about Star Wars.
I don't know if they confirmed it. I hope it's a Clone Wars style. I don't hope it's Rebels. I prefer the Clone Wars style to the Rebel style.
I don't know if that's been confirmed. They might. I don't think they showed anything except for the title card. Okay. I don't know how much they've talked about the art style of it. I also, and maybe, do you know when this takes place? Because here's a lot of the problems that I've seen people have with this online is people talking about it like, oh, we already got Maul's story. We saw his story from the point in which in Clone Wars we got a good bit of Maul. In Rebels we got a good bit of Maul. And there's been a lot of Maul content out there. Granted, we don't know his entire story, but have they? Do you know if they've said when this takes place in the timeline?
It's after Clone Wars, before Rebels. I'm pretty sure this is the whole, and then like either just before or just after Solo, a Star Wars story. Because I'm pretty sure the whole. Yeah, you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I think I heard a few people talking about how they're hoping that it covers basically the time frame in which leading up to Solo, because in Solo we see that whole like hologram thing of Maul being essentially like a kingpin style, like running the underground. And I guess it'd be interesting to see if this series covers like how he got there, him being it, and how he got out of that, because we really don't get any of that in Clone Wars or Rebels. Because
Right.
in Rebels we see the end of Maul's story, so we
Right.
know where Maul's story ends. We don't know
Yes.
all of it, but we do know a good chunk of Maul's story. So
That's probably it. But yeah, so I'm excited for that one. Another thing they announced was not one but two Mandoverse movies. One being Mandalorian and Grogu, and then the other being an Endgame style finale film with all of the like Ahsoka, Rebels, Mandalorian. It's like a big Endgame style finale film, bringing everything that they've done to a close.
So, okay. So I didn't see that one, at least in the official like on stage announcements. I need to go back and just watch because I'm pretty sure they live streamed. So I just need to go back and watch the recordings of the live streams. I did see Mandalorian and Grogu is something that it was announced so long ago. I think it's coming out in 2027 or maybe next year. I can't remember. But they've shown footage of that at D23 and I believe it's San Diego Comic-Con. So that wasn't a new announcement. We've known about Mandalorian and Grogu. The Endgame style one is something that I hadn't heard about. How much? So I'm assuming it takes place after Mandalorian and Grogu.
I would guess so. Now I will also preface this with this: I did not see an announcement for that one specifically. That one I just got very excited about because I think that would be a really good idea. The only reason I think it probably wouldn't be true is because this is another thing that's confirmed is Ahsoka season 2. They did confirm that. They also confirmed that Hayden Christensen will be coming back as Anakin Skywalker for that series as well. So I know that's confirmed for sure. But maybe it wasn't like a confirmed movie, but maybe it was something that Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau had literally talked about after Grogu was, hey, we are going to wrap it up after the end of this. We will have a complete story.
Yeah, because I haven't seen that one. What I have seen was they announced 3 more movies. Some of them, I think from what I saw, it was 3 new standalones and then 2 new trilogies. But this is where, again, I think it gets a little bit into, I need to hear this from the horse's mouth type of thing.
Sure.
From what I heard, they confirmed the speculation of there being a Rey-focused movie.
I heard that
is happening. I'm pretty sure they confirmed the director, who I can't remember who it is. I think they also talked about a Finn-focused movie, and this is where I think that I put a big question mark on that one being true.
Yeah. There's a ton, like, we know the things that are confirmed because we like saw things for them, but there's some that I'm just like, I think they may have like dropped in passing, like they're working on something.
I need to go back and like look at all the official, and so this is why I have speculation about those other ones, is because the Darth Maul one and the Mandalorian and Grogu, and what was the other one? The Ryan Gosling movie, I saw on Star Wars' official Instagram account as posts. All these other things, like the other Mandalorian and Grogu movie, even Ahsoka season 2, I did not see talked about on Star Wars' official Instagram, and that's where I put in a little bit more into a question mark.
I know I saw Ahsoka for a fact, so
okay,
that's true.
But in terms of like the Rey movie and things like that, I feel like they would have put on their Instagram story as a confirmation, or their Instagram posts in general. Maybe I just missed it, but I'm curious to see, and maybe this can be a topic of conversation later down the line, maybe even next week, I don't know, once all these announcements are over, in terms of what we are... Actually, do you want that to be the topic of next episode? Because we had a state of the MCU. Do you want next episode to be a state of Star Wars? Because by next week, we'll have the entire idea of what this slate of Star Wars from Star Wars Celebration looks like.
Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Check out next episode. We'll be here.
Okay. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea because I think we're starting to talk about it now, but we don't have a lot to say because we don't know everything.
We know nothing. We know nothing.
Yeah. So So I think it'd be interesting maybe to have that as be the topic of conversation for next week, and we sit down, we like find out exactly what all the Star Wars stuff is, and actually talk about it as a topic of conversation and run through the announcements and what our thoughts are on, again, similar to the state of the MCU, we talk about the state of Star Wars.
Sure. But yeah, all the announcements they made, like whether it's real or not, some of it is just exciting to look at because I think some of them are actually pretty cool. Like a Mando versus Endgame style, I think would be phenomenally entertaining. And wrapping up that whole storyline. Technically, what would be considered the only other complete storyline other than the Skywalker saga, if you're technically looking at it objectively from a start to finish type of standpoint. So I don't know. I think it'd be cool. But that being said, we got today. We'll see what happens. We also got WrestleMania tonight. Yeah. I'm the only one who's excited about that. I'm ready to watch John Cena and Cody Rhodes. I could not give a flying fuck. Honestly. I know, but some things are looking up this week. We got a lot of good things come out. Sinners comes out this week, which I'm really excited for. It debuted with a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't.
Yeah, I know Coy was really positive on it. I'll probably see it. Probably not this afternoon because I have plans with friends, but I might end up seeing it tomorrow. Maybe, I don't know. It is a movie I did not have on my radar until I saw people like Coy, people like a few other reviewers that I watch like really glowing on this movie. So now that I have AMC A-lister, I might end up just go seeing it.
Well, we'll see. I'm hoping it's good. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks for taking the time to listen or watch, depending on where you're viewing this from. We are on all streaming platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, etc., etc. Every podcast platform, promise you, we are on it. If you like what you heard, like what you saw, give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe to us. We're also on all social media platforms under @NerdyNimrods. And we post things daily on that account, so you can keep up with us, see what we're doing, see what we're watching as we wait for the next episode each Sunday at 12. But with that being said, thank you for taking this journey with us. I've been Juggernaut, aka Carson, with
Brandon, aka Parrotfish,
and this is us sitting here saying, stay nerdy.